or have been respected in the journalism world. We'll get into that in just a little bit. 913-381-0810 is the phone number. We'll talk with Field Yates coming up at noon. We've got, I think we're going to bust out the Sad Fans Bengals from week 2. For no particular reason. I'm not sure why we're doing that. I just decided today, just for S's and G's, just got a wild hair. Was like, let's just spin the wheel of sad fans and see what it lands on just to have some fun. The Bengals, what are the odds? So we'll play that, and I may be putting together a sad fans later this week of Bengals and losing their minds, fans in disarray about the Chiefs not winning against the Broncos to help the Bengals get in the playoffs, because clearly the Chiefs are afraid of the Bengals. They're scared of them. They don't want to play them in the divisional round after the Bengals would have gone to Buffalo and won that game. The absurdity that's out there. So that's how the show lines up today. We're going to learn funniest best coming up in the 1 o'clock hour. No Mick Schaefer. He is in Denver. I think probably still in Denver today. No Kansas City Chiefs press conference because they also are still in Denver right now. They had already made their plans to travel back on Monday before the game was over, or before the game started, I should say, because of their troubles getting out of KCI on Saturday and then getting to Denver and seeing what was happening on Sunday. We're not flying back. We're not flying back on Sunday. Guess what? They've got the week off. They can afford themselves. They've earned the right to rest their starters, and then also the right to come back on a Monday and not have to stay or make sure you get back early, because you may be playing on a Saturday, like Denver is going to be playing on a Saturday as the playoffs are set. 913-381-0810. Jack Johnson here with us, Dylan Michaels. Guys, thank you for coming in. I mean, I didn't actually know who would be in here today. I heard Nate this morning. I didn't think Steven, because he lives up north, that's just smart to take the equipment home with him. Heard Todd Lebo from his house, and then an hour later heard Todd Lebo in studio, so I thought that was odd. Apparently you can transport now, so that's cool that they invented that for Lebo. I guess if you're high enough up with companies, they allow you to have that ability. Just beam me up, Scotty, right to the station. But thank you guys for coming in, Jack. I know you worked yesterday and then in here again today. Thank you, brother.
Hey, Dylan worked harder than I did, because we had post-game, but I couldn't leave my house.
Right.
I tried. I got the car about halftime, sputtered out, couldn't get there. So I said, well, I have the Tyline app. I can just do it from there. But Dylan had to go because he's the one pushing the buttons over here. The show can't go on without Dylan. So I had to come in today because I took the easy way out yesterday and decided to stay home like everybody else.
I don't think you had to, though. Like, had to is an interesting word. Like, had to come in today. You know, like Drake is here. Dylan, maybe you didn't even have to come. I'm here, so you didn't have to come in. I appreciate that.
We could have troubleshooted something. But, hey, the car did make it.
Nice.
The highways were plowed well enough. I was not sure what they were going to look like.
Yeah.
But, yeah, was able to get there. The good thing is there's not a lot of cars out there today.
That's a good point.
So I could take it as slow. I mean, I left like 30 minutes earlier than I usually did, and still was a little bit late today. So I tried to take it as slow as possible.
The car that we have now, if we did not have this expedition that we got from Rob Side Ford, if we did not have the expedition, then I probably would not have made it, because my wife's Toyota Venza. Certainly my Honda Accord wasn't making it, that 04 Honda Accord. My wife's Toyota Venza, front-wheel drive, crossover vehicle. No chance it was going to make it out of the neighborhood. So I'm weird in that I was kind of excited this morning, because this is the first time, and like putting it on the snow setting and four-wheel drive and like, all right, let's see. And I made it out of the of the neighborhood just fine, but I know that if I only had front wheel drive, I would have got to the end of the driveway. I wouldn't even got to the end of the driveway. Maybe only because our driveway is on a slope. It's a slanted down. So maybe inertia, gravity would have got me to the end of the driveway, but then that was it. I would have been toast, would have been done. So hopefully everybody is taking it slow. If you had to go into work, hopefully you made it. There were a number of cars that were attempting it this morning as I was driving into work that, could tell they were front wheel drive only, even some crossovers or some SUVs that were stuck, mainly in the trying to get from the main road into a side road, because that thing that's plowed and you got to make it through that big, snow mountain mound that's there when they plow the roads, and that was tough. Dylan, thank you for coming in. I appreciate it, brother. You got a ride with Lebo?
Yeah, we trekked like it was across Hoth in the GMC that he had. So
Nice.
yeah, it worked out.
That's all. Did you really get a ride with Lebo?
No.
Oh, okay.
The old man
That
has
was
a four-wheel
convincing.
drive, thankfully.
Oh, thank you
The
to,
Accord
yes.
was never gonna make it.
Yes, Mr.
Never.
Michaels, thank you. Yeah, my Accord wasn't going to make it either. I don't know. I would have probably been on my phone here on the app on my phone talking in my basement right now because I wouldn't have been able to drive in to get the equipment to then drive back. Honestly, I might have been smart enough to take it home on Friday, but I don't give myself that much credit. I don't think I would have. If I was smart enough to take it home on Friday, I would have done that anyway, even with not knowing. Because typically I have doubts about how bad it's going to be. So when it's like, we're going to get 6 to 12 inches, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to take that as any boastful man.
Yeah, you
I'm
mean
gonna take
Iowa? Iowa's gonna get 6 to 12 inches.
You tell me, you whatever amount of inches you tell me we're going to get, I'm going to subtract 2 to 4. Just like you're a boastful college guy. I'm subtracting 2 to 4 of whatever you think you're telling me that it's bringing. No, it was as advertised. So got out about 6:15 to the car in the driveway, and roughly 7:05 is when I was able to pull out and go. It was interesting. So hopefully everybody is safe. And we are here today hanging out with you. If you want to give us a call, 913-381-0810. You can text in as well, 913-912-4810 is the text line to join us. Thank you for tuning in today. Let's talk about this game for the Chiefs. It is not a Victory Monday, but it's a who the hell cares Monday. Like, honestly, this is, I guess, part of my surprise, part of my reaction is the reaction of maybe not even nationally to a degree. I was a little surprised at how many people were picking the Chiefs to keep it closer or picking the Chiefs to cover the spread. I had talked last week a number of times, like, I'm going to take the Broncos minus the points because this Chiefs offense with their starters had trouble scoring against that defense. And now you're going to have backup offensive linemen against a really good defensive front that pressures the quarterback. You're going to have backup guys in the secondary that's already an issue, backup defensive linemen, backup wide receivers, backup running backs. Oh, and by the way, that backup quarterback. And there's no way the Chiefs were going to be game planning to put anything on film that might be good enough to then attack said defense for the Broncos. I thought maybe they would get a scoring drive, maybe 2. And, we were talking on, I think it was Thursday maybe, talking with Kent Swanson and discussing DeAndre Hopkins and his 1 touchdown away from 250,000. I'm like, yeah, I was joking like, okay, put money on an anytime touchdown for DeAndre Hopkins. If they get down in the red zone, then they might bring him in. But then I questioned how often I thought they would even get in the red zone. Like, the only surprise was with how much ease the Broncos offensively, it seemed, to tear through the Chiefs' defense. And only to a degree. Because, Jack, if you take away the pass rush from the Chiefs and you take away Justin Reed and Trent McDuffie and Nick Bolton and Drew Tranquill, like, we've already had questions about this secondary this year. We've already had questions about who they have besides Trent McDuffie. And you've got Cortland Sutton. You've got a legit number 1 who needed 80-something yards to, get his bonus. So he was going to get his incentive that was there. They were going to make sure that happened. And you got Bo Nix, and you've got a team that was playing a playoff game. That was a playoff game. And, Jack, their first touchdown was a fake reverse screen the opposite way. They weren't generic in that game with their defense and their offense. The Chiefs were. It wasn't a surprise, really, except for some of the commentary that came out of it about, wow, I can't believe this is happening, or even really before the game of the amount of people I saw picking the Chiefs to cover. I just didn't think that they had it in them in that matchup. That's what a preseason team would look like going up against a playoff team that's game planning. That's what we saw yesterday. A team playing a preseason game versus a team playing a playoff game that's fully game planned and ready to go.
Well, I think in the last couple of years, and you can go back to Mahomes' first year as a starter, Chiefs fans in their mind had remembered those games as, oh, they are able to move the football. They were able to keep it close. You remember the Mahomes game, his first one as a starter in Denver. They won that game. I remember the one where it was Chad Henne starting the regular season finale against the Chargers, where Justin Herbert came and won that game. And then last year, Blaine Gabbert beats the Chargers on the road in L.A. The difference is all three of those teams were bad.
Yes,
those were bad football teams.
Exactly.
Yesterday, not only did you get a good football team, a well-coached football team, you got a football team that had its fangs out. They had to, there were style points. They won by 38. Like, it wasn't like
the selection committee was appreciative of that. They're probably going to give them a better seed because of that.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like the NCAA tournament.
Yes.
But, Denver had a very important task at hand. And I think they understood that the national perception would be if they missed out on the postseason because Cincinnati was 4-8, won 5 in a row, and all they had to do was win one of their final 3. And in that finale, they lost to the backup Chiefs with a vanilla game plan. It would have cost some people their jobs out there. And I think you just had to go back to what happened at Arrowhead against Denver. This was a Broncos team that was not scared by the moment. Bo Nix looked good. Sean Payton was aggressive in that game. The defense was great. And they took the Chiefs to the wire, and it took a blocked field goal to win that football game. No, I'll be honest. I didn't expect 38-0. I thought the Chiefs were going to be within single digits. But, clearly Denver came out ready to go. I mean, that game was over 3 minutes into the game.
Yeah, I was disappointed that – I took the Broncos minus the points because, again, I thought that, this was going to be tough sledding for the Chiefs. And it's easy sledding right now if you can get there around Kansas City. But I thought it was going to be tough sledding for the Chiefs to be able to score. But I was a little disappointed that I couldn't find individual player props anywhere for any Chiefs players. It was only Denver Broncos players everywhere. It was Bo Nix. It was Broncos receivers, Broncos running backs. So I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to take Cortland Sutton, over the number for him, give him an anytime touchdown because they're going to be feeding him the ball. Estime, I'll give him a touchdown along the way. Bo Nix, maybe a couple touchdowns. I didn't think all of that, but I really, really wanted to go in there and hammer the under on anything Carson Wentz in passing yards. I wanted to just hammer the under on rushing and any receivers that they had any lines for. And, of course, they had nothing for that. And I'm like, damn it. I guess I'll just throw some little things here or there. But I didn't have a whole lot of faith in that game. Again, I didn't think it would be 38-0. I thought more like 24-7. Like that was kind of where I thought the game would be. 24-7, maybe 27-10, something like that. I was right around 17 to 20 points is what I thought the final would be. Not 38. I didn't think it would be that bad. And the Chiefs got shut out. There are some concerns moving forward with Harrison Butker, I think. That is something at least to talk about over the next couple of weeks that people will bring up and have their questions about because since he has returned from the surgery, he's missed an extra point and a couple of field goals, and he was just automatic. There was no question about Harrison Butker, whether he was going to make it or not. So there's a question there. But, I tweeted this out this morning, and it's kind of, to the people that think like the Chiefs took a dive, like Don Van Natta Jr. and his ridiculous tweet about this is the low light of the NFL season, the Chiefs, quote, taking a dive, whether it's because they're resting their starters, quote, or scared of the Bengals. Like this dumb narrative that's out there, man. Bengals fans like trying to keep themselves relevant or think that they really are that good. I don't know that a team has ever squeezed as much out of a win in the AFC Championship game like the Bengals have 3 years later. Like they have squeezed every ounce of juice out of that fruit in that game. And they went and lost 2 weeks later. They've won 2 playoff games since that game. The Chiefs have won 7, including against the Cincinnati Bengals. But I tweeted this out, and just food for thought. Imagine a team, this is a terrible scenario, but imagine a Chiefs team in your mind that does not have Mahomes, Kelsey, Hollywood, Worthy, Tooney, Creed, Trey, Jawan Taylor, Pacheco, Hunt, Chris Jones, Karlaftis, Turk, Dana, Bolton, Tranquil, Reed, McDuffie. The Chiefs are the number 1 pick in the draft. If the team they have right now did not have those players, if the team that they played with against the Broncos yesterday was their team this year, that team would be picking number 1, especially with the first place schedule that they had this year. but that would be the number one pick in the draft. And losing along the way to a playoff team 38-0 would not be a surprise. It wouldn't be the Chiefs taking a dive. But people don't want to acknowledge that. Think about all of those players. Mahomes, Kelsey, Hollywood, Worthy, Tooney, Creed, Trey, Taylor, Pacheco, Hunt, Chris Jones, Karlaftis, Turk, Dana, Bolton, Tranquil, Reed, McDuffie. I mean, that's any player of consequence almost that is missing, that either didn't play, didn't suit up, or played 3 snaps, or at the most, Mike Dana played 6 snaps in the game. Turk played 3, Dana played 6, the offensive line outside of Wanya Morris, but Jawan Taylor didn't play, but the offensive line played 3. That's what that team was out there. Like, that team's the number one pick in the draft.
That was a awful football team out there. I mean, that was there's no way
really
to sugarcoat
was.
it. I think it was David Lesky that put it out there that if you were a Chiefs bandwagon fan this year, like this is what it was like before Andy Reid, the Romeo Crennel years, and when they would get beat 41-3 at Mile High, like that's what it looked like. The offense couldn't move the football. But speaking of the Bengals, I mean, they have the only active quarterback who's still beaten Patrick Mahomes in the postseason. Mm-hmm. I think that's why you squeeze every drop out of it, because he started his career 3-0 against Patrick Mahomes. But again, that huge, meaningful win in the postseason feels like ages ago. Maybe not to Bengals fans, but to Chiefs fans who have won 2 Super Bowls since.
They've won as many Super Bowls since that game as the Cincinnati Bengals have won playoff games since that game.
And I think this is the obvious statement. Like, if you are leaving your playoff fate in the hands of a team that was playing backups on the road against a team trying to get in the postseason, you've screwed yourself in that spot. And that was the humorous part about it. What people aren't talking about, if Pittsburgh won on Saturday night, they were going to do the exact same thing. Why should the Chiefs owe anything to a team trying to get in like Miami or Cincinnati by going, well, you know what, we are going to try our absolute hardest? And you can miss me with it's a division rival and it's Denver. You should have some pride in playing them. The Chiefs went 15-1 so that they could rest all their starters and not have to worry about throwing the book at a Denver team. They're not petty like that. They don't care about who gets in as the 7th seed. I mean, keep in mind, you're the 7th seed out there. You are the lowest remaining seed in the AFC. And why did we all of a sudden forget that 7 seed, whether it be Denver, Miami, or Cincinnati, has to go to Buffalo and win? Are we just now taking away the narrative that Buffalo's the team of destiny? Cincinnati, who won 5 in a row, is going to go into Orchard Park and beat Josh Allen, the MVP, and the Bills? Like, why did that narrative all of a sudden change that, the Chiefs resting their starters, they were changing up what could happen in the playoff picture? And let's play into the hypothetical. Let's say they did. Are they not trying to get a three-peat? If they truly were scared of Cincinnati, which, of course, nobody believes that truthfully except for Bengals fans out there. But if they were really scared, okay, and they did what they were supposed to. They made their path easier that, Cincinnati isn't in the postseason, and therefore you don't have to see them at Arrowhead Stadium. But I believe if they really felt like they were a dangerous team and, we want to get them in, well, that would have been the best-case scenario because they would have gone and taken out the Bills. You wouldn't need to worry about Buffalo, a team that did beat your starters in the regular season. I don't understand why that narrative is being pushed, because the Chiefs were going to do that and have that vanilla game plan, whether there was playoff spots on the line for whoever, because they earned that right to. They earned that right to rest and throw a JV playbook at a football team. That's why they did it. That's why the offense looked the way it did. It's why the defense looked the way they blitzed, I think, twice in the first half.
Yeah.
That's Steve Spagnuolo we're talking about. And, when you're the number 1 seed, I'm sorry, you get to dictate what you want to do. You've earned that right to do it. And if you are a team that was begging a backup-led team to go into Denver and win, you screwed yourself by not beating New England in week 1 or giving up 38 points to a rookie quarterback who now at the time looks great in Jaden Daniels, but you had a home playoff game, a primetime game. You lost to Washington at that point in the season. You started 1-4. Like, if you started 1-4, you can look back and nitpick that.
0-3.
0-3. There you go.
And the one win out of those 5 games was Carolina. And at the time was it was a Carolina team that didn't believe in Bryce Young, and it was a Carolina team that Bryce Young didn't believe in Bryce Young.
Yeah.
Bryce Young's a different quarterback now with a lot of confidence heading into year number 3. And that was also a new coach with Canales, and whether it was Andy Dalton or Bryce Young and trying to figure things out, and Chuba Hubbard hadn't really become Chuba Hubbard to where they're like, oh, well, maybe we should sort of rely on this guy a little bit more. This guy's pretty damn good. Let's do that. Like, that was a different Panthers team that they won in Carolina in week 4, but they lost to Washington. They lost to New England at home. They played a last place schedule.
Not even Drake May.
They played a last place schedule, because it's not the Bengals that has won the NFC North or AFC North. They played a last place schedule. And they won 9 games, and those 9 wins. Now that we know the draft order of the teams that are not in the playoffs, those 9 wins were against teams picking 8, 3, 2, 6, 12, 1, 2, until Denver in overtime, in which the Broncos punted twice, and against Pittsburgh, in which Russell Wilson led one of the most boneheaded, 2-minute drives we've seen. The guy picked up 3 yards instead of running out of bounds, like lowered his shoulder to take on.
How tough he was.
Right, he's so smart.
They had to survive 2 clock management catastrophes, one by their own coach in the Broncos game, and the other by the Steelers offense in the game Saturday.
And Russell Wilson missed a wide open George Pickens. They had him. We could have had him, Mav. We could have had him. Pickens, a great route, and Russell Wilson throws it to the sideline out of bounds, and Pickens has to go and dive backwards, and maybe Pickens ran the wrong route.
Well, I gotta get on the same page.
Nice job, Dylan. No, I was leaning at the tape to get there, too. You and I are like, oh, there's the finish line. We're going to land this plane. Don't start 0-3. Don't lose to the Patriots at home with Jacoby Brissett and rely on other teams. Like, it's your own fault.
You know what scary teams typically do is fire coordinators immediately after the season. Is what scary playoff teams typically do. Is they gut coaching staffs and figure out changes they need to make for the next season.
Yeah, you always gotta have a scapegoat. And Lou Anarumo, who I would take on the Chiefs staff right now. I mean, thank you. Are you kidding me? I hate Lou Anarumo. I hate him because he's been so good against the Chiefs.
That's how cheap that organization is. They're supposed to fire Zach Taylor.
I mean,
but they can't, because then they'd be paying. Are they still paying Marvin Lewis? I don't know who they're paying. Someone and Zach Taylor. That's why they have to keep Zach Taylor through his contract.
So then you fire Lou Anarumo, who's been an awesome
who's actually been one of your best coaches.
Yeah, and the defense this year hasn't been great, but the defense this year was not expected to be great. Bengals fans were like,
but why on earth does this team have 0 rings? Like, why? Oh, it's ownership, just like the Jets.
I can't figure it out. We'll get to the bottom of it one day as to why they haven't won a Super Bowl
when you
yet.
sell all your plasma screen TVs just to not pay your wide receiver and cause a huge issue in training camp and then lose your first 3 games, this is what happens. But then it's the Chiefs' fault for actually doing their job and being winners.
And then that receiver goes out there and has a career year and has upped the price tag of what it will cost you now to re-sign said Jamar Chase.
Which is what we all said. All of us said, in basically anyone that wasn't in the Bengals front office said, pay him now.
You better do it now, because if he has an amazing season, and he absolutely went out there and destroyed the competition.
Well, I think, too, like, nobody's denying that the Bengals were one of the hottest teams in football to close out the year. They won 5 in a row. They had their backs against the wall when they were 4-8. They could not afford any more losses. Joe Burrow was playing at an MVP level. Jamar Chase was playing like Jamar Chase. T. Higgins had caught fire. Chase Brown was providing good production in the running back room. They were finally giving a little better protection. Like, nobody's trying to say they couldn't be a dark horse on the AFC playoff picture side. But also, I mean, you bring up those last 5 games that they won.
Yeah.
They beat Dallas by 7. They beat Tennessee, who now has the number 1 overall pick.
Mm-hmm.
They beat Cleveland at home.
With Dorian Thompson-Robinson in that game.
Another one there. And then they did beat 2 playoff teams in Denver and Pittsburgh, but we're talking about Pittsburgh as they're limping into the postseason. Mm-hmm. They lost 4 in a row to close out the regular season, and Denver needed the final game of the regular season against backups to get in.
Yeah.
So if it was a different story and they had beaten Kansas City at the end, Buffalo, Baltimore, they had this great resume, I think you're going, man, really don't want to see that team in the postseason.
I think that's a good point.
But why all of a sudden do we feel like their defense got fixed? This was a defense that was one of the worst in the league at one point this season. They gave up a ton of points. They had a bad secondary. Trey Hendrickson, certainly a problem up front for the pass rush, but there would have been some teams that game plan around it. Like the Bills would have game planned around that, having a mobile quarterback like Josh Allen. Like, all the credit in the world to a team at 4-8 to pick themselves up and go, we still have a chance here. But when you do finish 9-8, you didn't give yourself any guarantees. That's why when we talked about the college football playoffs, all these teams that had 3 losses go, man, if this happened, the undefeated in hypothetical games. Well, don't lose 3 football games.
Right.
Make it easy on everybody and go, we won 11. We got in. We didn't even have to worry about it. I mean, Denver with 10 wins got into the postseason. Like, you needed one more win on the schedule, and you couldn't get it done. And you can't say, well, that was back then. That was a different – I'm sorry. You have the full season, and you have those pick-me games, the gimme games, if you will, and they had a lot of them in the first half of their schedule. They didn't get it done. They clearly were not stout defensively. The offense wasn't clicking like it was. But if you say, well, we couldn't win it back then, but if we did – well, all the if we, the shoulda, woulda, coulda, I'm sorry, it's reality. You lost those football games, and in the end it hurts you more than banking on a backup team to win on the road against a now playoff team.
And I think it's a great point about those 5 games and the 5 games in a row and who they beat, and if they would have knocked off, they just went through this gauntlet of Buffalo and Baltimore and Kansas City and Denver, and they win 5 in a row, and they missed the playoffs. Boy, 1 win away, and that might have been a team that could have, rode that momentum to the Super Bowl, right? A little bit different. We're talking about teams that have, the number 1 pick, the number 6 pick, different things like that. Because winning those games, beating the Cowboys by a touchdown, a bad Cowboys team, beating the Titans by 10 and allowing 27 points for the Titans, beating the Broncos in overtime where the Broncos had 2 different possessions in overtime, and then surviving the Steelers team that got dominated by the Chiefs on Christmas and had extra rest. You go to Pittsburgh, and that Pittsburgh team, you win by 2. And Russell Wilson, again, and George Pickens was terrible in that game with all the drop passes. There were opportunities there. But the Chiefs beat Tampa Bay, that's a playoff team, in overtime. That was lucky. They take care of Denver with a blocked field goal, a playoff team. That was lucky. They go to Buffalo, the number 2 seed in the AFC. They lose by 9, but they were down 2. That was the Chiefs being exposed. They beat Carolina, a team that was playing much different this second half of the season with Bryce Young than they were then. They knock off the Raiders. That was lucky, certainly, and that's a bad Raiders team. And then they beat the Chargers by 2, and that was luck. Tampa Bay, Denver, L.A., and then Buffalo. Those were 4 games they played in that stretch of all playoff teams, and they went 3-1. But it was 3-1 where it was all luck or exposed. The Bengals had their stretch of 5 games in a row, and there was no luck. They're hot. They are heading into the postseason, and they are so hot right now. It's just different narratives out there, because while we talk about squeezing the juice out of that one game, NFL commentary, after yesterday and today and maybe tomorrow, you're done talking Bengals. So how do you get the most? You can talk Chiefs moving forward. You can talk Buffalo, Baltimore, Denver. You can talk all these things moving forward. But you're done talking Bengals. So for the 24-hour news cycle, we can talk Bengals. We get Bengals talk about what could have been, what didn't happen. Did the Chiefs, lay down? So we got a day out of that. So now we can move on from the Bengals and talk about everything else. I mean, that's part of strategy too. We strategize what we're going to talk about, what the format is, when we're going to talk about it, how we're going to talk about it, because there may be times when we're going, well, I want to talk about this, but let's save that for Wednesday. That seems like more of a Wednesday midweek conversation. We can get into it now, but it would be better on Wednesday. And so we've got these conversations that we already have planned for a couple of days, because today we're talking about certain things, And I think part of it is that as well. It's easier to get into today, the Bengals conversation, because tomorrow you move on from them. You're done talking about them, because we're talking about the 14 teams that made the playoffs. We're talking about ranking those teams, who is the most likely Cinderella that can happen, who's the worst team in the playoffs in the AFC, who's the betting favorite, which is the Chiefs. Oddly enough, the second betting favorite is Baltimore. That has to go through Buffalo and Kansas City to be able – second betting favorite to win the AFC, I should say.
My prediction, they're going through Buffalo.
I went back and forth because I want to rank 1 through 7 with you guys, maybe in the 11 o'clock hour of the AFC teams. And I'll be honest, I went back and forth on 2, 3. I mean, 1 is obvious. I think 4 and 5 are pretty obvious to me. I went back and forth on 2, 3, and 6 and 7. And I landed on what I think is different than others. That's kind of a giveaway when you just said that you'll take Baltimore and Buffalo, but we'll see. Let's take a time out. I do want to get into some phone calls. We got a couple of people on hold. We'll do that, get into some texts as well. 913-912-4810, 913-3810810. The Tennessee Titans have the number 1 pick in the draft, and because it's a 3-way tie, they will have the number 1 pick, the number 3 pick, and then the third round, the number 2 pick. So that means the Chiefs have the number 66 pick in the draft in the third round. They've got the second pick of the third round, the Chiefs do, for L'Jarius Sneed in that trade. So they've got pick number 66. They have 32, 64, and 66. Right? They'll pick 32, they'll pick 64, and they'll pick 66 because, they're going to win a Super Bowl. So 32, 64, 66 for the Chiefs based on L'Jarius Sneed trade. We'll talk a little bit about that. Tyreek wants out of Miami. We'll talk about that as well. Lou Anarumo was fired. Jags, Jets, Bears, Pats, Saints all have job openings. The Jets are scheduling an interview with Mike Borgonzi, Chiefs assistant GM, to fill their general manager role. It's the only GM job open, and it's a GM job that's open that already has a Chiefs assistant general manager scheduled to be a part of their interview process. Nothing else with other Chiefs assistant coaches. Don't know about Spags or Merritt or Matt Nagy or anything like that. But we'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We got Learn Funniest Best later on in the show. Yeah, we'll break out Bengals sad fans from week 2, and we'll work on a Bengals sad fans later on this week just for S's and G's. We'll talk about all of those things as we continue rolling your phone calls next here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Make sure. 810 Texas. If this was a couple of years ago when it was 16-game season, the Bengals would have been 500. Has a 500 team ever won the Super Bowl? No. Have they? What were the Giants when they would make it in as a wild card team? Yeah.
I remember it was that Seahawks team. It was the Marshawn Lynch game. I think that Seahawks team was 7-9 and beat the Saints because they somehow won the division at 7-9.
Yep. 913-912-4810 Texas. Okay, I'll admit it. Still not a Nagy fan, and I still think they're missing some of precision they had before. But as EB used to say, at the end of the day, it won't matter. Worst case, the Chiefs play someone from the AFC West in the divisional round, and then Baltimore or Buffalo to get to the Super Bowl. Best case, we get a couple of upsets, and we cruise to the Super Bowl. Then it's one game to make history. At the end of the day, I'll take those odds all day long. Go Chiefs. Speaking of Matt Nagy, the New York Jets have requested permission to talk with Chiefs offensive coordinator Matt Nagy to fill their head coaching position. I mentioned before the break that they have requested permission to talk with Mike Borgonzi, Chiefs assistant GM, to fill their general manager opening. They are the only team with a GM opening right now because the New York Giants have brought back Joe Schoen. The Jacksonville Jaguars have retained Trent Baalke. The Indianapolis Colts have retained Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen as well. So the Bears, the Jags, the Pats, the Pates, Bears, Jags, Pates, and Saints, and Jets, and Jates all have head coach openings. The Bears, the Browns fired their offensive coordinator today. That would be Ken Dorsey, who was with that Bills team. So they fired Ken Dorsey. So the Browns, the Jags, Patriots, Saints, Jets all have offensive coordinator openings and defensive coordinator openings. That would be Chicago. Cincinnati now, since they fired Lou Anarumo and 3 assistant coaches. And then the other teams with head coaching openings that are out there. So Matt Nagy looking like he's going to interview for the New York Jets head coaching job. And Mike Borgonzi going to be interviewing for the New York Jets general manager job. It's taken a little while, but I had wondered a few years ago why the Chiefs front office wasn't being picked apart as much as it was. And then you see polls in Chicago, and then you see Carolina, who now his name escaping me.
Brant
Tillis, thank you. And now you see Borgonzi being interviewed by the Jets. All those guys were on the same staff that was drafting a lot of these players that are still playing on this team and signing a lot of the players that I went through and said, if you take these players off this team, this is the number one pick in the draft team. 913-381-810. Let's bring in Jerry to the conversation on Sports Radio 810 on a losing Monday, a winning Monday, who cares Monday about the loss, a playoffs are set Monday. Jerry, what's on your mind, brother? Go right ahead.
I would have to say we're all winners around here.
You know what?
St. Joe and Kansas City.
That's right. You're darn right about that.
I would like to wish Matt Nagy much luck on the Jets. It would sure be a lot better to see him and listen to him as a Jets coach than it would be to hear Rex Ryan talk again. I can't stand him. The best thing I ever seen was Buddy Ryan taking a football to the face, even if it was a big old fat head. It didn't matter. It was a picture of him, but do you remember that?
Oh, yeah, Keith Cash, baby. Divisional round,
yeah,
Houston Oilers.
That was awesome. I love that, but I don't want no Rex Ryan repeat or nothing. But before I say what I got to say about the Chiefs, I wanted to thank you guys for all coming in because I wouldn't have anybody to call and bother this morning. I'd have to call the city and complain to them about no plows being around.
Well, you can call to us and not complain and just have a little fun talking about the number one seed in the draft that will rest their starters for 24 days and be completely, totally rested up for whoever they play in the divisional round that has been playing playoff games the last few weeks. So
that is exactly right.
Yep.
With the Chiefs, I don't really mind them resting all the players. I told my brother, I said, I think they're going to do really good. I think Carson Wentz is going to be awesome, and then that just fell to crap.
Yeah.
So the one thing, as a Missouri Tigers fan and as a Kansas City Chiefs fan, I am so thankful you guys had a KU game on Rock Chalk. That was awesome. I skipped the Chiefs game. I couldn't stomach it. I heard parts of it, but now I'd rather hear KU blow everybody out than to listen to that game anymore. I felt bad too. I really was hoping for the best for them guys.
Yeah, Jerry, I appreciate the phone call, man. Thank you so much for the kind words and weighing in today, and talking with us instead of yelling at bothering other people in the snowplows who were out there doing their job and putting in extra time and certainly doing yeoman's work and working overnight through the hours and everything because, man, the snow was just relentless. I had plans that after if you want to see how life works, make plans, right? Whatever that saying is, that's on somebody's kitchen wall. I had plans that after the Chiefs game was over, I would be listening to the post game while shoveling the driveway, so I didn't have to worry about it and getting out in the morning. That I was just going to go out and shovel the driveway, and then the plans did not include 3 more hours of snow, of me looking out and going, "Oops, not done snowing yet. I guess I'm just going to bed. I guess this ain't happening, man." The post game's over. The KU post game's over. The 8-10 post game's over with the Chiefs. Sunday Night Football's on right now. This is the game of the year. Sam Darnold's going to prove how amazing he is. Sam Darnold's going to prove that he's worth all that money, and the seeing ghosts was so long ago. That game was actually closer than 31-9 in my estimation. I think that game was 2 plays, maybe 3, but 2 plays away from it being maybe a Vikings victory. I'm not even joking. Maybe a Vikings victory. Those 2 plays would be 4th downs where Sam Darnold had a wide-open Jordan Addison on 4th down and goal for a touchdown, and he looked at him and didn't throw the football twice and then ended up throwing incomplete passes. If I was Kevin O'Connell, I might take the clipboard and bang it over Sam Darnold's head. Because, 1, you went for it. You were aggressive. 2, you made the play call. 3, they executed. Those were both touchdowns. Now, I had no money on Jordan Addison, no fantasy football. It's not anything. It's not Jordan Addison. It just happened to be twice. He was wide open. And weren't those first reads? Weren't those snap, boom, Addison's going to the right? You got the crossers. It wasn't offensive pass interference because the defenders actually hit each other. You would have been able, that you had the, quote, rub route, but the defenders collided. The offensive player Naylor, I think it was, or whoever it was, didn't make contact. And Addison was wide open. And then later on, Addison was wide open on the quick little slant. And Naylor had the out route. But then after Sam Darnold didn't throw it to Addison and he started rolling to his right, Naylor then ran back to the middle of the field and had nobody within 5 yards and just standing there like, "Hey, throw me the ball." And Sam Darnold ignores him and keeps running and throws to a guarded Jordan Addison after Addison had run his route in which he was wide open. That was like a double agent type stuff for Sam Darnold. That's the Sam Darnold that people in New York were like, "See? That's him." And that was unfortunate for him because he's had such a great season. But I think the Vikings were a couple of throws and a couple of decisions from their quarterback away from competing in that game and maybe even winning it. Not even joking. And they had an almost pick 6 from Van Ginkel when they were down 8. Because they score a touchdown on that drive, the Lions do, and then the game was essentially over at that point.
Well, it was the absolute worst-case scenario for them. I mean, they have this huge matchup. The number 1 seed's on the line. And I do believe it was close. You had a couple of missed field goals, bad red zone offense. This was a huge game for Sam Darnold's future contract. I mean, you play well and you lose, you're probably still getting a lot of money in the offseason. Now I think you have to reevaluate that because it was a playoff game, for lack of a better term. And now you go from, well, we could have had the number 1 seed in a bye and ended our regular season with a win in Detroit, to now we have to go on the road.
To L.A.
To L.A. And you could very well end this season with 14 regular season wins and a playoff loss in the wild card weekend. It feels very similar to that Kirk Cousins-led team that started, what was it, 9-9?
Yeah, they had 8 straight one-score victories.
Yep. Oh, and Daniel Jones goes into Minnesota and wins.
And that was when Kirk Cousins on 4th and 11 threw the ball 7 yards.
Yes.
Checked it down
to a guy who was double covered. It was like
running an out route to the sideline too.
It was the game that gave Daniel Jones his contract as well.
Right. Maybe this will be the game that gives Sam Darnold his contract on Monday night, and he'll look great. But
no,
man, I just could not believe those
Some of these
plays.
carriages turn into pumpkins when next Sunday isn't promised.
And that was it's like a golfer that had the yips. It reminds me of, and the best of the best have been there, Mahomes against the Bengals in the second half in that AFC Championship game that the Bengals still squeeze every single ounce out of that game when there was an open receiver or two and Mahomes just didn't throw it. He wasn't trusting what his eyes were telling him. Like, whatever was going on in that second half, I still think the Monstars came down and took his power at halftime. But that was like, that's what it felt like with Sam Darnold on both those throws. It's easy. It was like if Mahomes saw McCole Hardman in overtime against the 49ers and then double clutched and didn't throw it and then decided just to run around. It was that wide open. McCole Hardman and Sam and Jordan Addison was. It was odd last night. But good on the Lions, and guess what? I questioned Dan Campbell playing his starters on Monday night. And when they went out there, not only did they have enough energy in the second half, they pulled away from the Vikings in the second half. So, well done, Dan Campbell. He knows his team. He knows how they went out and played. And by the way, we might be seeing some value coming back to difference-making running backs. Running backs that are true difference makers. Saquon, Henry, Gibbs, Bijan, all awesome this weekend. Soon we'll talk with Field Yates. Hopefully everybody is safe out there today. Sterling Holmes a little under the weather. Aren't we all right now? Look at the weather right now. I guess everybody right now is driving on top of the weather, but I think most of the houses and cars, if they're out there, are under the weather right now. But Sterling, he'll be back either tomorrow or Wednesday or at some point, maybe. I'm not sure. But we press on in his stead. That's right. Keep it moving, as they say. The Chiefs will keep it moving as well. We head into the postseason, into the playoffs, and the super wild card weekend is set with the Chargers heading to the Texans Saturday at 3:30, Steelers heading to the Ravens Saturday night, the Broncos heading to the Bills on Sunday afternoon at noon, the Packers heading to the Eagles Sunday at 3:30, Commanders heading to the Buccaneers Sunday night, and then wrapping up Super Wildcard Weekend is Vikings in L.A. against the Rams. That is Monday Night Football. And I'll tell you what, if you want to find all of those games, you can find them right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB, because we got KU, Arizona State on Wednesday. Thursday, the college football playoffs, Penn State, Notre Dame. Friday, Ohio State and Texas. Saturday, Chargers and Texans, Steelers and Ravens. KU taking on Cincinnati. Sunday, Broncos and Bills and Packers and Eagles and Commanders and Bucks. And then Monday night, the Vikings and the Rams. It's all right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. The college football playoff semifinals and Super Wildcard Weekend you can hear on your home for everything that's really swell, as Todd Lebo would always say. It's Sports Radio 810 WHB. Let's go through things we actually saw in the game, okay, for the Chiefs. There were a couple of things that I was going to be watching and paying attention to and looking at. I'm going to take them in reverse order of what I was most interested in, okay? Some of the players in the secondary, Roland Wallace playing more, Nazi, Joshua Williams having to be out there, Jaden Hicks, guys like that. One aspect of what I was paying attention to and watching a little bit closer. FAU on the defensive line, what he looked like playing a full game. Uche actually out there playing and active, what he looked like. And then DJ Humphries. And that was really it. Wanya Morris at right tackle, because he's the one to step in for Juwan Taylor if he gets injured. And I thought it was great him doing his best Juwan Taylor impersonation of a false start. That was good. But like, Wanya, we just want you to be yourself. You don't have to be somebody different. Just because you're playing right tackle for Juwan, you don't have to be Juwan Taylor. Look, Carson Wentz is not trying to be Patrick Mahomes. Look how he's playing. He's not trying to be Mahomes. Are you kidding me? DJ Humphries. I will say, watching some of the clips on Twitter, there are a couple of Twitter accounts that have posted every single passing rep of DJ Humphries. Pass blocking rep. Pro Football Focus gave him a pass blocking grade of 10. I thought that was interesting. They credited him with 6 pressures and 1 or 2 sacks. I can't remember. I know there was one specific where he just simply got beat. The hand swipe that didn't work out in his favor. There were a couple of reps that left a lot to be desired. And as I'm watching that game, there was one where DJ Humphries looked like he had Benito squared up, and then Samaje Perine came and chipped. And I don't know that Humphries was ready for a chip, because then he got beat to the inside. That's one of those to where it looked like he was fine against Benito. If I was Perine and my extensive knowledge of playing in the NFL as a running back and a third down back, probably a little bit more than Perine has. If I was in that situation, I might have been able to see that DJ Humphries was perfectly fine with Benito, and Benito was not winning to the outside. So maybe you don't need to chip, because Samaje Perine didn't just chip, he chucked. Like, he hit him between the ribs and knocked Benito off the platform, but knocked him into the open area between DJ Humphries and Kingsley Suamataia that was playing left guard. But after watching the pass blocking reps, I came away a little more comfortable than I did at first watch. When I'm just watching the game, I'm going, people still want DJ Humphries to play left tackle in the divisional round? I'm going to go with Joe Thuney moving forward. I said last week I would stay with Joe Thuney, even watching the game and watching some of the reps, or at least every single pass blocking rep that's been put out there. I still would stay with Joe Thuney, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it was when I watched it live and saw a couple of times where he was just simply beat with the hand swiping or, a power rush a couple of times. He was okay. And what I think he is he played okay enough to be the backup left tackle on this team if something happens at left guard, if Caliendo's playing left guard, or maybe Kingsley. Maybe they liked what they saw from Kingsley at left guard, or whoever. Wanya at left guard, I don't care. Whoever at left guard gets injured or something, and DJ Humphries comes in and Thuney moves down, okay, you know what you got with that. They also didn't give him as much help as they were giving in game planning for Joe Thuney, which I loved, because I feel like that gives us more of a true read on what Humphries would be on a 3rd and long in an obvious pass rushing situation when you can't keep somebody in to help and double team that left tackle or that right defensive end, right outside linebacker against DJ Humphries. You need him to go and win on an island. I liked that they didn't have to give him they didn't give him a lot of help because they really didn't game plan all that much. So did you see enough from DJ Humphries to say he's your left tackle moving forward, or are you, stay with Thuney and Humphries is there to break glass in case of emergency?
Yeah, I'm staying with Thuney just for the way this offense looked in the final 3 weeks where the starters were playing. And you know what you're going to get from Joe Thuney, I think, every single game. It's not going to be phenomenal. He's not going to pancake anybody or stuff like that, but he's not going to get penalized. He's going to hold his own for the most part. I think you're rolling the dice a little bit more with DJ Humphries. What I got yesterday was more so a, shattering the glass scenario where it's really only one specific spot for me. If Mike Caliendo gets hurt, I'm putting DJ Humphries in the game at left tackle. I'm putting Thuney back to left guard.
I agree.
If it's a scenario where Joe Thuney gets hurt, I'm sorry, you can't do anything on the left side. You'd have DJ Humphries or Wanya Morris and Mike Caliendo. You can't do anything to the left side. No disrespect to them, but you have a backup left guard and then a backup left tackle playing in that spot. You can't expect your offense to operate the same at that spot. So to me, what I saw yesterday was good enough play for one scenario. If Caliendo goes down, I feel confident enough that with Joe Thuney's help at the left side, DJ Humphries could be the left tackle. If Joe Thuney goes down, I think you're just in a doomsday scenario where it's what you have to do, unfortunately. And maybe they do go with DJ Humphries. Maybe they go with Wanya Morris because he's had more reps out there this season. But I don't think he was good enough to go, well, Joe Thuney is a better left guard. That's where he's, been an all-pro before, and let's roll the dice there with DJ Humphries being a good left tackle in the postseason. You can't roll the dice in the postseason, in my opinion. It's do or die at that point. You know what Joe Thuney can give you at left tackle. I'm not sold enough about DJ Humphries in a game in 3 quarters.
Yeah.
Basically, I don't know if I've seen enough in that spot, but if there is a scenario where he has to go in there, I'm probably going Humphries over Wanya Morris at left tackle.
I do wonder, the second half looked a little worse than the first half. Is he a guy that's just getting worn down? I mean, he messed up his hamstring in the fourth quarter, the first game that he played against the Chargers. And in this one, the second half wasn't as good as the first half. So is it a guy that just needs more and more reps in NFL games to shake off the rust and to be in NFL shape? And if he was in NFL shape, then the second half would look closer to the first half. And then, okay, well, now you've got a guy that maybe you feel like you can rely on, and you become a better team overall because your best 5 are out there, which is Humphries and Thuney, as opposed to Thuney and Caliendo. I'm the it ain't broke, don't fix it right now category. And so I'm staying with Joe Thuney, and DJ Humphries comes in if there is an issue. But like you're talking about, the doomsday of if Thuney were to go down. But the scenario of when Humphries comes in is Caliendo gets hurt because Thuney needs to slide down to left guard because you can't have Norzad or Hansen blocking. No. Although Norzad didn't look bad. I thought Norzad was okay in the game. Hansen looked brutal. Hansen is not ready to play in an NFL game. It's a far cry from Allegretti to Caliendo to Hansen. And that is the Grand Canyon of backup interior offensive linemen being C.J. Hansen. And look, he's a rookie, late round pick. kind of expect that, but it was really rough for C.J. Hansen. I felt bad for Carson Wentz at times, and I felt bad for C.J. Hansen at times in there. But I thought Norzad was okay. I thought he was okay, that if something were to happen, well, that's not wood. At the center position, then maybe you're not, in dire straits at that time, because Norzad, I thought, held his own. 913-381-810. Amos next up here on Sports Radio 810 WHB on this Monday following the Chiefs' 38-0 loss to the Broncos. Amos, go right ahead. What's on your mind, sir?
What's up, guys?
What up?
I turned the game off, a couple minutes into it. I was like, this game doesn't mean anything to me at all. Can we change Humphreys into a tight end for S's and G's and then put Wanye in there? Because I think that would work. True player to carry on the mission to keep Mahomes upright.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, they did have one play at least with tackle eligible with Ethan Driscoll in there. That was the fourth down play to Samaje Perine. So they, had 2 tackles on the left side, and guess what? Nobody got through that wall. I mean, it was a quick throw to the right. So
plus he's been out for a while because he's been injured, or he had the injury. So I just think some more practice maybe. I want Tooney back inside so we have a little bit of a run game going forward.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess we'll find out
missing.
and see. But anyways, we got time to sit and wait, chill, relax. I can't wait for this weekend. Maybe you can speed the week up so we can get some college football. There's some great football this whole weekend, dude.
Yes,
I can't wait. I'm pumped. And I think, for an upset alert, I think the Broncos do take out the Bills.
Dude,
I want your guys' thoughts.
Amos, I appreciate the phone call, man. I'll say this. We were talking about it in the break. I'm all over Broncos plus 9.5. Now, you might have to shop that line because I didn't get it this morning. And so we're at the break. I'm like, crap, I meant to go and play the Broncos plus 9.5. And so then I went to Draftkings, and it's Broncos plus 8.5 at minus 105. And I'm like, oh, no. So I'm like, let me check out FanDuel. Broncos plus 8.5, minus 105. I'm like, oh, no. Let me check out ESPN Bet. Broncos plus 9.5, minus 110. Boom. There it is. Found it. So ESPN Bet still has Broncos plus 9.5 at minus 110. DraftKings only gives you minus 105, just a little less on the juice, but you got to drop a point. You got to go from 9.5 to 8.5.
Typically, ESPN Bet's always got the best line and juice, just because they have less of the market share, so they are trying to get more users.
100%. Well, one thing that always annoys me about some of the bigger ones is like when both lines are minus 115.
Yeah.
It's like this team's plus 3, minus 115. This team's 3-point favorites, minus 115. Like, come on, man.
Right.
Both be minus
They're
115.
both the same. Come
on. Get out of here. I here's the thing, too. If I'm Denver and I'm the Broncos and if I'm Sean Payton, I think I'm putting together clips of national media and tweets of them talking about the Chiefs laying down and taking a dive because they're afraid of the Bengals, and that's why the Chiefs lost that game, is because they took a dive. If I'm the Broncos, because missed in this conversation about scared of the Bengals and the Chiefs are resting their starters and they laid down, missed in the conversation is how the Broncos played. And if I'm Denver and Sean Payton, I'm presenting that to my team. You guys didn't win that game. The Chiefs lost it. You guys didn't perform that way because you're that good. The Chiefs laid down. They took a dive because they were afraid of the Bengals. It's not that they couldn't compete with you. It's not that you guys went out and took care of business. You needed to win to make the playoffs, to accomplish our goal of getting in the playoffs. And you guys went out and played fantastic football. Not according to them. So, you head to Buffalo, where you're just sacrificial lambs now, to the Buffalo Bills. Double-digit favorites, or double-digit underdogs almost, to the Buffalo Bills. We didn't earn it to make it. Some other team allowed us to get in. Now, do you need extra motivation for the playoffs? I don't know. We always say you don't need extra motivation for the AFC Championship game. But boy, did the Chiefs talk about Burrowhead after that game was over. They had a lot of Burrowhead talk. Burrowhead my ass. Burrowhead. Burrow, where are you guys at now, Burrowhead?
You don't need it, But you'll always take it, and you don't want to provide it. Like,
That's
you
a
don't
great
need
way
the
to put
extra
it.
motivation, but you'll take it, and you definitely don't want to give it to the other team.
And Buffalo didn't provide it.
No.
But if I'm Denver, I'm still using it because it's provided by others. It's a shot at Kansas City, but it's also collateral damage or caught in the crossfire, whatever. The Denver Broncos, they're not that good. They're clearly not 38-0 against the Chiefs' backups good. Chiefs must have just went out there and laid down because they're scared of the Bengals. Yeah, I like the Broncos plus the points, plus 9.5. And I'm not the only one because clearly it's dropping at different places to plus 8.5 now at a couple of different spots.
I do think this game is going to be close. I really think there's two outcomes. Either Buffalo, blows the doors off them and the game's never close, or this is probably decided in the final few minutes, where it's a game-winning field goal or it's a final possession, a final stop, something like that. Because, it's a Denver team that has nothing to lose. I mean, you are the 7th seed. That's the definition of being the 7th seed. You have only road playoff games the rest of the way if you do make it to the Super Bowl. They are ahead of schedule. I don't think anybody thought in year one of Bo Nix they were going to win 10 football games, and they also still have to deal with the Russell Wilson contract out there, so that's hamstrung them now for a few years. They're ahead of schedule, and they're playing with house money, and Buffalo, even though they're not the number 1 seed, they've been called the team of destiny. It's different this year. I remember even I was watching the Bills-Patriots game. I forgot who was on the call for it, but they were talking about how Buffalo fans feel like this is finally different. And so many times we have fallen short. Sometimes at the same team, sometimes in the Super Bowl if you go back to the 90s, but they are deemed the team of destiny. Josh Allen has had an MVP-type season. They want to have that collision course again with Kansas City, I'd imagine, because the best way to prove themselves as the team of destiny, you got to slay the demon that has just been in your way the last 3 to 4 years. And the danger of that is you look ahead. You overlook an opponent like Denver, who has proven this year they are good enough to hang around with great teams out there. They've got a great head coach in Sean Payton. Bo Nix is a more than capable rookie quarterback. What it's going to come down to, in my opinion, is how big of a moment is it for him, right? Is he going to, for lack of a better term, piss down his leg in a game like this where
I think that's a pretty good term. I don't think that's, I don't think you need a better term.
Everybody knows what I'm talking about, right? You know the phrase. If Orchard Park is freezing and it's rocking and Denver's going, no, we're the spunky underdog. Well, sometimes spunky underdogs get their ass kicked in the first 10 minutes of that football game because they've been buying into the hype and we can do this, we can do this. Buffalo's still a loaded and dominant football team. We can't lose sight of that. But in the postseason, you never really know. I mean, we saw Skylar Thompson and the Dolphins go in there a few years ago, and that was decided in the final minute. Like, when you're looking ahead, and I'm not saying Buffalo is going to, I think it's more so a credit to Denver. They've got a great pass rush. They've got a rookie quarterback that blends well with Sean Payton. They've got good receivers out there. Marvin Mims has come on strong. Cortland Sutton's a number 1 wide receiver. They've got the tools. It's going to come down to how big of a moment is this for a team that hasn't seen the postseason in, 8 years?
Yeah.
Haven't been there in 8 years?
Peyton Manning.
We're going to find out how big of a moment it is very early on in this game. I'm talking first 2 drives, Denver gets 1, Buffalo gets 1. We're going to see how big of a moment it is for them.
Yeah, and we'll see if Buffalo is the team of destiny. We heard that last year, too. Like, this was the year they finally get the Chiefs at home. And they can take care of Baltimore. They get the Chiefs at home. They're the number 2 seed. And, and oddly enough, like, it's almost Baltimore last year is sitting where the Chiefs are sitting right now. Because Baltimore was sitting there with the bye and saying, we don't have to play both the Bills and the Chiefs. They have to play each other. And so the Chiefs go to Buffalo and win. Okay, fine. That's fine. We get the Chiefs at home, and this isn't a very good Chiefs team. If the Buffalo Bills win, okay, that's fine. We get Buffalo at home, and now we know either Baltimore or Buffalo is going to go to the Super Bowl, and we have stopped this Chiefs run of making the Super Bowl. They took care of the Houston Texans by 3 touchdowns in the divisional round, and then sat at home and waited for the Bills and the Chiefs to play. And then, or maybe it was the day after. Maybe the Bills and Chiefs played that night, and then the Ravens played the next day. Whatever it might have been. No. It was Ravens first on Saturday is what it was.
Chiefs-Bills was the last game of divisional weekend?
It was Sunday night.
I think, yeah.
It was Sunday night game. And so they said, like, okay, who's going to come here to Baltimore? And the Chiefs are sitting in that position now. Now, I don't know if they're going to win by 3 touchdowns against whoever they play in the divisional round. That'd be great. But they don't have to play both Baltimore and Buffalo in these playoffs. But it doesn't mean they're just going to simply go and win the game. It's funny, somebody tweeted this out earlier. I didn't realize this. The Houston Texans play 3:30 on Saturday. Start time for every wild card game in Texans history. 2011, Saturday 3:30. 2012, Saturday 3:30. 2015, Saturday 3:30. 2016, Saturday 3:30. 2018, Saturday 3:30. 2019, Saturday 3:30. 2023, Saturday 3:30. 2024, Saturday 3:30.
One of those was the first Chiefs playoff win in like 30 years,
That
right?
job.
That's
Yeah.
right.
It's like 30-0.
How about that? The Texans, Saturday 3:30. And then somebody tweeted, a tradition like no other. Saturday 3:30. We should have known that. By the way, we should have known that it was
Just
going to be
pencil that
Texans
in.
playing 3:30 on Saturday in the wild card round. That's crazy. I didn't realize that. But yes, Saturday 3:30 every single time they played in the wild card. All right, speaking of Texans, speaking of wild cards, speaking of these teams, we'll take a timeout. We'll come back. I want to go through the three of us ranking 1 through 7. We'll start with 7 because that's what Sterling likes to do. So in honor of Sterling not being here today, he's still with us. It's just not here in the physical form.
Spirit.
Yeah, that's right.
Here in
That's
spirit.
right. It's under the weather. So we'll go 7-1, how we think these teams stack up in the AFC. We'll do that on the other side of the break. Field Yates comes up at noon. Just for S's and G's, we'll play Sad Fans Bengals edition from week 2. No particular reason whatsoever. And then we got Learn Funniest Best in the 1 o'clock hour. More Zone next. All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB, where you can hear throughout the week the college football playoff semifinals and then every single one of the playoff games coming up this weekend. Super wild card weekend in the NFL. Chiefs with the bye week. Detroit Lions, by virtue of the win last night, have the bye week as well. Minnesota Vikings drop to the 5 seed. They will head to the Los Angeles Rams. So all of that going on in the NFL right now. Let's go through how we rank these teams in the playoffs in the AFC. I said earlier in the show, previewing this, that I struggled with 2 and 3 and I struggled with 6 and 7. And I went back and forth a couple of times and back and forth, and I've landed on the teams in the order, and I don't really have a lot of conviction on how I've ordered these teams in 2 and 3 and 6 and 7. So let's start with number 7. My 7th team in the AFC in terms of what I think and how they're playing right now, the talent they have, what I think the possibility is of them making a run or going far, independent of opponent that they're playing. Number 7 for me is the Houston Texans. And I went back and forth with another team here, but I went with the Houston Texans because the way they played against the Chiefs on the Saturday before the Super Bowl, or before the Christmas Day game, Super Bowl, before Christmas Day, losing Tank Dell, the way they played on Christmas Day, just essentially a no-show, and then coming out and saying, we want to get some momentum going. We got our guys that we're going to play, our starters for a little bit. And they played okay against the Tennessee Titans, but I didn't look at that game and go, all right, there's the Houston Texans I saw before. So I'll get into why I chose the other team that I was going back and forth with at number 6 and why the Houston Texans at number 7. Who do you have at number 7, Jack?
I have Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh, with their 4-game losing streak, they played good playoff teams. They had Philly, Kansas City, Baltimore there. They had Cincinnati, who was on the doorstep at the postseason, but of course didn't make it in. To me, I was surprised the spread against Baltimore was not double digits. It's close, but I just don't know how I could look at Pittsburgh, the way they're playing, the way Russell Wilson is playing, how far they've fallen from that 10-3 start, and think that there's any remote shot that they have an upset. I'd like to think so, because I believe if Pittsburgh wins that game, they're the team coming to Kansas City, and then beating Baltimore and Kansas City back-to-back on the road would be unheard of for a Steelers team that struggled so much in the final 4 games of the regular season. But to me, I don't know how they can make a deep run. I think they are the most walking wounded team, if you will. Maybe not so much injuries, but how they're playing. I mean, they, by definition, limped into the postseason, losing 4 in a row. So to me, I think it is Pittsburgh as the 7th best team in the AFC.
Totally understandable. By the way, that is officially at every single book that I'm going to now, because ESPN has now dropped the Broncos to +9. Boy, the power of this show. Power of this show. The last break, I got them at 9.5, said, hey, you can still get them at 9.5 at ESPN Bet, and they've dropped them to 9 already. So now officially, Steelers are the biggest underdog at 9.5 heading to Buffalo. That thing is still sitting at 9.5. Dylan, your number 7 seed or number 7 team?
Also Steelers as well.
Steelers,
Same reasons. Also, if I'm putting my money on a quarterback, it's not a lot, but I'll still go C.J. Stroud over Russell Wilson at this moment.
Yeah. Since you guys had Pittsburgh, and I had said I was going back and forth on Pittsburgh and Houston, or at least my number 6 team. My number 6 team is Pittsburgh, and the reason I went with the Steelers here is while they've lost 4 in a row, it's not the best way to start off with why you're picking somebody ahead of another team. Now, while this team, yes, has lost 4 games in a row and didn't show up on Christmas Day, just as I talked about with the Houston Texans, I think the way they played against the Bengals, that there's probably some issues going on in that locker room with Russ and Pickens maybe heading into the game. I don't think, well, this is putting trust in a man that, you never know what's going on between the ears. I don't think Pickens is a guy of 5 drops in a game player. And if he didn't have that game, make a strong case that the Pittsburgh Steelers win against the Bengals. And if they win against the Bengals, is there a different feeling nationally of Pittsburgh or Houston? Maybe not. Maybe they just look at it and say, Pittsburgh won this last game against the Bengals that were playing for their life. But were the Bengals really playing? Bengals, if they won, they kept their, hopes alive. But the Jets had to win and the Broncos had to lose and all of that stuff. But my issues with Houston continue to be their offensive line scares me. The weapons are lesser than now. C.J. Stroud isn't having the year that he had last year. And I'm not saying Russell Wilson is a better quarterback, but Russell Wilson has at least had experience in the postseason. The Steelers have some difference makers on defense. They've got George Pickens. Again, I went back and forth, and I have zero conviction on 6 and 7. And I may not even be making a strong enough case as to why I have Pittsburgh over Houston. But it's my list, damn it, and that's what I have. Number 6 is Pittsburgh. Jack, you're number 6?
Yeah, I mean, it's Houston here at number 6. And, for the reasons I said for Pittsburgh, it was limping into the postseason because of the way they've been playing. I think Houston actually is limping into the postseason because of how hurt they are. I mean, they had an elite receiving core to begin the year. You had Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Stephon Diggs. You add Joe Mixon, C.J. Stroud, a sophomore season where you feel like he can build off what he did in his rookie year. And it's just kind of gone the opposite way. And I do wonder how much of an emotional toll it took on them for the injury Tank Dell had. I mean, we saw on the sideline at Arrowhead how much that took out of them. They were a completely different team after that injury. And then you have a few days to recuperate, basically, and they get housed by Baltimore. Like, to me, I think what we saw in the fourth quarter against Kansas City and what we saw against Baltimore is probably closer to what they really are. My only reason over Pittsburgh is that, maybe that win against Tennessee gave them a little bit of juice going into the postseason. And since we're all talking, Chargers this, Chargers that, they can go in and win on the road, and they should do that. They're favored to do that. I don't know. Maybe it's like last year where Joe Flacco and the Browns were, an 11-win football team. They were going into Houston. We thought, the Browns are playing well. Joe Flacco's playing well. And the Texans murdered them.
Yeah.
It was never close. Not saying it's going to happen against the Chargers, but I almost wonder if we talk up the Chargers too much, or then Houston kind of just all of a sudden puts it back together with what they have, and they pull off an upset. But I have them just barely over Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Houston would have the bulletin board disrespect. I guess maybe not the bulletin board, but the disrespect. They're the home underdogs. Now, the Rams are a home underdog as well to the Vikings, but you could say, well, yeah, they're a home underdog to a 14-win team, the Minnesota Vikings. The Houston Texans are a home underdog to the 5 seed, and it's not a 14-win team in the Chargers. So they could have that. Like, hey, the popular pick is that the Chargers are going to come in here and win. So maybe they can have that going for them as well. I think the Chargers go in there and win, but it does worry me that it feels like that's close to unanimous outside of Houston that the Chargers go into Houston and win. It's close to. There are some people that are saying, no, I'm going to take the Houston Texans to win that game and surprise some people because, they're going to beat this Chargers team. And by the way, the Chargers team that struggled for 2.5 quarters against the Raiders, in which the Chargers won, they would be the 5 seed. They knew that. They weren't playing at the same time as the Steelers, not knowing what Steelers were doing. They knew you beat the Raiders, you're the 5 seed. You're going to Houston. You don't have to worry about going to Baltimore. That's a lot of motivation on the line. And while, yes, they ended up getting win number 11 on the season, and it turned out to be a 2-touchdown game, it was a little bit closer through 2.5 quarters than maybe Chargers fans wanted. So, I could see that. Dylan, your number 6 team?
That's also the Texans. Same reasons, yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I went back and forth on my 6 and 7, and I landed on Pittsburgh 6, Houston 7. You guys are just the exact opposite. Number 5, Jack, we'll start with you. Who's your number 5 team?
I'm going to go Denver here. I think Denver is better than the two teams we just brought up in Houston and Pittsburgh, but I think it's close between them and my 4-seeded team. But I do love the way they're playing right now, and I do say that they beat a backup team, and they lost the 2 previous games before that. But I don't know. I think that if things really click for them in that game against Buffalo, they'll certainly have an opportunity. I don't give it a very high chance, but if Bo Nix has the high completion percentage, they're getting the play action working, that pass rush can cause some havoc in the backfield against Josh Allen, they are certainly going to have an outside chance to do it. And I think because of that defense and Sean Payton, I like them in that 5 spot. I don't know if I'd go as far to call them a dark horse like If they beat Buffalo, they're going all the way to Super Bowl because they'd have to beat Buffalo, then go and beat Kansas City at Arrowhead Stadium. That's much easier said than done, of course. But I do think they've got the edge over a very banged-up Houston team and a struggling Pittsburgh team. So I'll have the Broncos at 5.
Dylan?
Same. Yeah, Broncos as well.
Same with me. So Broncos are my number 5 team. And, the matchup in Buffalo for this team in Denver that, Buffalo's the 2 seed, but they didn't get, to me, the worst team in the AFC. Like if you're looking at, seeding wise, they got that out of the number 1 seed, but they didn't get the team that they would have the best chance of taking care of business as the 2 seed in the wild card round. Denver may be a tough matchup for Buffalo, despite what the spread is saying, in that Denver's defense is legit. Buffalo is built on Josh Allen carrying them. I don't know how much I trust Sean McDermott. I don't know how much I trust the Buffalo Bills defense and secondary against a team that can pass it a little bit. And the Broncos have proved at different times that they can pass the ball. Like against the Dolphins, that defense gave up 27. Against the Rams, they gave up 44. Against the Lions, they gave up 42. Like we're talking about back-to-back weeks in which they gave up 40 points because that defensive front and that secondary has been picked on. And Cortland Sutton's really good, and Bo Nix looks like he's playing some really good football. And that secondary for Denver, man. I mean, you don't have those stud true number 1 receivers. You've got Josh Allen who's making guys around him better, but that Denver defense is legit. And so if they can keep this thing a low-scoring game, which I think they have a chance of doing, of keeping this thing a low-scoring game, then they've got a great opportunity of going in there and winning. Now, we can be tricked by how awesome the Broncos looked yesterday as opposed to how they played against the Bengals that didn't even make the playoffs, in which they end up losing 30-24, and they had opportunities, and the Bengals just fired the defensive coordinator and 3 assistant coaches, and they scored 24 points in an overtime game. So we can look at that just last weekend and go, all right, well, how much are we, inflating Denver based on them beating a preseason team?
They feel like a team a little bit that was comparable to Miami last year, where I think Miami was almost that sleeper pick going into Arrowhead, even though they didn't play well in cold weather. It's like this is a vulnerable Chiefs team, though Buffalo's not really vulnerable. But I think people were buying in that upset could happen because of the weapons they had, because of what Mike McDaniel was able to do with that team. And then the Chiefs absolutely dominated them. Like, it's not going to surprise me one bit if we talk ourselves into Denver playing well going on the road because, as Dylan said on the break, they went into Baltimore a few weeks ago and got destroyed.
Right, absolutely.
And that's a Baltimore team that's kind of right up with with Buffalo. So that wouldn't surprise me one bit either, where we talk ourselves into this game being close and the Bills just roundhouse kick them.
And as much as I like the Denver secondary and that defense against legit offense, quarterback, receivers. Now, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins do not play in Buffalo, so they don't have that. Joe Burrow has been playing at an elite level a good portion of this season, and against Denver, he had 400 yards passing and 3 touchdowns. Like Jamar Chase and T. Higgins had a combined 20 receptions for 235 yards and 3 touchdowns. Those guys did. So as much as the Denver Broncos and that secondary and Pat Surtain and what they can do, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins 8 in that game against that Denver Broncos secondary. So that does give me pause in what the Buffalo Bills can do. But again, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins do not play in Buffalo. They don't have that player. They have Josh Allen, who makes a lot of guys around, makes that offense go. Number 4 team, Dylan. Who's your number 4 team?
The Chargers for me. I'm going to go with the Chargers because they are I think the Harbaugh brothers are very good coaches. Also, both have participated in a Super Bowl and many postseason games. So I feel like the Chargers are going to be much more ready than, say, the teams that are struggling, and the Broncos with a rookie quarterback. So that's why I had them at 4 above 5.
Yeah, I feel like you can almost tier the AFC. And I think the top tier are probably going to be our top 3 teams. And then we're wondering who the best of the rest are in that group of 4. And I think it's the Chargers as well. I've got the Chargers at number 4. as the best of the rest in that. Jack, who do you have at number 4, Chargers?
I'm going with the Chargers as well. I think they're the one team in the AFC side that fits the description of a dark horse. Like, it wouldn't surprise me in a weird scenario where the Chargers win that game against Houston. And if they got to Kansas City, like, you're just talking about divisional matchups. It's the third time they've faced off. The Chiefs also didn't get Ladd McConkey or J.K. Dobbins in that matchup at Arrowhead. That matchup would scare me a little bit. I know we talk a lot about Buffalo and Baltimore and meeting those teams, and they certainly are juggernauts. They're loaded. But the Chargers are one of those teams where you go, that's the third time they're facing them. They know how to handle that Chiefs team, clearly, because the two matchups that happen. And I think it's a Chargers team that is very, very well coached. I don't think any moment is too big for Jim Harbaugh. He's been phenomenal in year one. He pairs nicely with Justin Herbert. I know we make fun of the Chargers charging all the time. I don't think that's this type of team. I don't think they're a team that constantly shoots themselves in the foot. And right now, I mean, we talked to Matt Derrick last night about it. It feels like that is the inevitable matchup. Like, the Chiefs getting the lowest remaining seed. If it's chalk, Buffalo wins that game against Denver, and Baltimore beats Pittsburgh. I think we feel like the Chargers are that team to pull off the upset. Therefore, I'd send the 5 to the 1. And you get round 3 between the Chiefs and the Chargers. They are a very dangerous team. They are young. They are talented. They've got good receivers now. That is a matchup. It makes me feel a little bit queasy, which is why I have them at 4 right now.
Let me just say, watching the Chiefs in the playoffs with Patrick Mahomes is different than the way we used to watch the Chiefs in the playoffs when it was all about the ghosts of Arrowhead and losing those home games, and the last home win being the Pittsburgh Steelers in 1993/January of 94. And I know, they got a playoff win with Alex Smith, but a home playoff win finally against the Colts with Patrick Mahomes. I mean, it went from Joe Montana to Patrick Mahomes to win a damn playoff game at Arrowhead Stadium. And one of those games, after they went to Buffalo and lost in the AFC Championship game in 1993, the next time it was like, this is the Chiefs' year, was 95. And they had the 1 seed, and they got the bye, and they had the week off, and they had that damned Jim Harbaugh heading into Kansas City and the Colts. And 15-year-old Jason was, left with tears after the Colts left the stadium winners, and Jim Harbaugh running off with his number 1 in the air, running through the tunnel. That I will always remember that particular picture. And, the kicker who shall not be named, and the quarterback who shall not throw passes to his own team, apparently, and Marty waiting too long to put Rich Gannon in the game. It took, 4 interceptions before you were like, maybe we go to this backup quarterback here. And it was too little, too late from that standpoint. There are still some ghosts from Jim Harbaugh coming into Kansas City in the divisional round off a bye week. So I'd like Patrick Mahomes to exorcise that demon as well. But again, I've watched – the playoffs are different with Patrick Mahomes, so you don't have those house of horrors at Arrowhead Stadium. But maybe the last one for me would be Jim Harbaugh coming into Kansas City. Not playing, but he's there. He's on the sideline. He's wearing cleats. So, maybe that matters, the Chargers as well. Number 3 seed, or number 3 team, I should say, for me. I went back and forth on this one. This is the other one I went back and forth on. I ended up going with just how the seeding was. I ended up going Baltimore as my number 3 team behind Buffalo. Baltimore has had their ups and downs this year. They took care of Buffalo. I mean, they did that already this year, so you would think head-to-head that should matter. And I, took that into account. But I landed on Baltimore being the number 3 team for me in the AFC. Jack?
Yeah, I'm going to go Baltimore as well here, and maybe I'm falling victim to just looking at what their road would be. They beat the Steelers. They're likely having to go on the road to Buffalo, and if they win that game, they would maybe be going on the road again to face Kansas City in the AFC Championship game. And I don't know. I mean, Josh Allen certainly has gotten his criticisms for falling short, but it's never really been about individual play. He's always been a great quarterback in the postseason, where with Lamar, it's been different. Like, Lamar plays at an MVP level of the regular season, and then for whatever reason, that offense in the postseason struggles. They can't get things going, and I think it's about their style of play. Baltimore wants to have a big lead where they can rely on running the football. They can give the ball to Derrick Henry. It's cold out there. We're going to win it by just running the football down your throat. We can beat you in a shootout, but that's their style of play. Like, to me, the Bills have the Mike Tyson knockout punch. Like, they can put up, as we saw, nearly 50 points, and they put everything on Josh Allen. I don't know if the Ravens want to put everything on Lamar Jackson. I think they want Derrick Henry to have a pretty big role in the postseason. But, yeah, I think it's more so the path for them. I think if they get behind by 14 points in a game, I don't see them coming back. Where Buffalo, if they fell behind by 14 points, they absolutely have the firepower to get back into that game. And honestly, same thing with Kansas City, because they've done it before in the postseason. With Lamar and the Ravens, they have to do it first for me to believe they can actually do it. And for that reason, I got to wait and see with them. They have to be trailing in a postseason game and overcome that on the back of Lamar Jackson before I can give them that top spot over Buffalo.
Dylan, number 3 for you?
I'm going to go the Bills.
Yeah.
I think the Ravens
I went back and forth.
are just a more complete team and playing better right now than the Buffalo Bills. And I think if it's a 2-3 matchup, I think the Ravens go in and get some revenge from, what would it be, 2 years ago when Lamar had him on the goal line and then threw it was a fumble 6 or pick 6. And that was it. That was all she wrote. So I think that it seems like Lamar and Josh get more comfortable with the playoffs every year that they advance. Like, the next round will be more comfortable. This AFC Championship, if we face the Ravens, which I think it'll be, it might be one of the most physical football games in NFL history.
And they will have all offseason thinking about the loss at home, and they'll have a chance to avenge that one. So do we all have the same? Because I've got Buffalo number 2. Buffalo number 2 for you, Jack.
I do have Buffalo number 2.
Baltimore number 2 for you, Dylan.
Yep.
So Chiefs number 1.
Yep.
Okay, so there you go. So we are pretty much in agreement on Jack and I on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We disagree on 6 and 7, and then you guys agree on 6 and 7, but disagree on 2 and 3 of Baltimore, Buffalo. That was really what I came down to: Baltimore, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Houston. Baltimore, Buffalo, the 2 and the 3 I went back and forth on, and then 6 and 7. But I was pretty set on Chiefs being 1, Chargers being 4, and Denver being 5. And then Pittsburgh, Houston, whichever way you want to put them, and then Buffalo, Baltimore, 2 and 3. We'll take a timeout, come back, wrap up this hour next. All right, wrapping up this hour, we'll talk with Field Yates coming up in the next segment. Still want to get into the fact that Lou Anarumo was fired by the Cincinnati Bengals. Head coach openings around the NFL. Jags, Jets, Bears, Pats, Saints. Gerard Mayo wins the game. They move from the number 1 pick to the number 4 pick in the draft. Oh, that's so brutal. They could have been picking number 1, already having their quarterback. Think about the haul they could have gotten to trade down and maybe still end up with like a Travis Hunter to trade down, getting extra first-round picks. But that one win against the Bills, there's no reason to trade down now. Oh, man. We'll talk with Field Yates coming up next.
help you fantasy focus while he scoops the news. He's on TV more often than he's in bed. He'll break down the NFL without a single hair ever out of place. It's Field Yates of ESPN. Now in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you. Dylan Michaels heading up until 2 o'clock. Right now, let's talk some NFL football with our NFL insider, Field Yates from ESPN, joining us here in the zone on a Monday. Field, how are you, sir?
Jason, I got to ask you a question. I'm doing well, but to begin, are you doing this broadcast from home, or were you able to make it into the studios today, given the weather that I have seen all over my Twitter timeline in Kansas City right now?
I was able to make it in, luckily, because of the car that we have with four-wheel drive. So I was able to make it in. If we did not have that vehicle, I would be at home right now doing the show. But, yeah, it wasn't the easiest to get out of the neighborhood that hasn't been plowed yet, but look, the people are out there doing everything they can right now to try to clear the roads as much as possible. There were a couple of areas in our front yard, right by our porch Field. It was we got 17 inches was where the spot was by my porch, and right next to my car was 14 inches. So. So there are areas where the snow drifts in the middle of the road. It took me speeding up to plow through it. It was kind of fun, actually. I'm not going to lie, because I had the car to do it. But where the main road was plowed and the side road wasn't, so you have all that extra snow stacked up, Field. And so it was kind of fun as I'm getting close, because it was like 6 in the morning. So I'm looking around, there's no other car coming, and I'm like, all right, I'm just going to just plow right through the thing. That was kind of fun. I'm not going to lie. But the rest of it, not fun. And I know there are a lot of people not having a lot of fun with what's going on today. So hopefully everybody is as safe as possible and able to stay home and enjoy the day. There. So absolutely. Field, the Chiefs might as well have stayed home, I guess, from that performance yesterday.
Have they gotten home or no?
No, they have not. I don't think they have. I know they were coming home today, but I'm not sure if they have landed or not. So that is not an answer that I have for you right now. But the Chiefs' performance, I liked the Broncos minus the points. I was a little confused at those that were thinking the Chiefs would score against the Broncos. I didn't think it would be 38-0 Field. Is there anything that the Chiefs take away from that game, or is that a preseason team with a bunch of backups that is not having a game plan whatsoever, totally vanilla, against a team playing a playoff game?
Yeah, correct. There was one thing that mattered the most for the Chiefs yesterday, and that was coming out of the game healthy amongst the players that played, and I'd say mission accomplished there. Now it helps when most of your significant contributors did not play at all, or in the case of a guy like Xavier Worthy, a mere one snap played yesterday. So that was the most important thing. I know this team already had the extra 3 days because of the Christmas Day game, and they will have the extra week next week. But I think that this is not merely about the rest between the game against Pittsburgh and whoever they play in the divisional round of the playoffs, but also the rest factored in for a team that's got several veterans that are playing, into their 30s, whether it's a Kelsey or a Joe Tooney, et cetera, DeAndre Hopkins, on top of the fact that these guys have played meaningful football games deep into February, or I guess as late as you possibly can for back-to-back seasons, right? And they're getting each team's best shot every single week. I just think there's a different weight the Chiefs absorb every single Sunday or Monday or Wednesday or Saturday or whenever it is that they play when they are facing off against opponents who want the best from the best. So I thought it was a wise decision to tap the brakes on the effort yesterday. Not the effort, but tap the brakes on the players available yesterday and merely go with the players that kind of needed to get some reps and get you through a full game. And now the focus is squarely on one of, let me see if my math is correctly, there are 4 teams that are viable opponents for the Chiefs, right?
Yep. Denver,
4, 5,
Pittsburgh,
6,
Chargers, and Texans are the teams that could all play here in Kansas City. What did you make of? It's been, I guess, an annoyance around Kansas City during the game, but then after the game as well. And this morning, some of the commentary about the Chiefs, quote, taking a dive or laying down or losing on purpose, or the players giving zero effort because maybe they wanted to keep the Bengals out of the playoffs. How do you weigh in on that particular commentary of the Chiefs losing on purpose yesterday, not because they were outclassed and outmanned, but because they went in there trying to lose the game?
Yeah, completely ridiculous, laughable, and there's certainly a lot of envy for those at the very top of the mountain. There was one team only throughout the entire NFL that had earned as much as you could possibly earn going into Week 18, that being the Chiefs. The Lions, who were a very capable foe as well, had to take care of business last night. I'm not trying to make this a slight at Detroit, but the ultimate prize in the regular season is to win that first seed in your conference, and the Chiefs earned the right yesterday to call me up and sign me to the practice squad and play me if they wanted that. So, no, it's a ridiculous notion, and no question about it, the Bengals, I would argue, are a more dangerous team if they had made the playoffs than some of the other teams that either ended up making the playoffs, like Houston or Pittsburgh, or some of the teams that were still fighting for a playoff spot on the final day, including a team like the Miami Dolphins. That being said, really, we think the Chiefs are scared of anybody? I mean, I think it's kind of a crazy idea that people are putting way too much into because it's good fodder probably. But, no, this team certainly is unafraid of any opponent, the Bengals included on that list.
Well, and losing 38-0 is not what I thought was going to happen. I picked something like 24-7, 27-10. I thought they would lose by around 17 points. I didn't think they would score that often against a Denver Broncos defense that was going to be game planning with all the backups for the Chiefs. That was not going to be game planning and keep it very generic. But also, I looked at it this way, Field, and I said, if you're the Kansas City Chiefs and you take off the team this year for the whole year, you take off the team Mahomes, Kelsey, Hollywood, Worthy, Tooney, Creed, Trey Smith, Jawan Taylor, Pacheco, Kareem Hunt, Chris Jones, Karl Loftus, Turk Wharton, Mike Dana, Nick Bolton, Drew Tranquill, Justin Reed, and Trent McDuffie. They're the number one pick in the league, right? They're the number one pick in the draft, right?
Yeah. I mean,
and so those guys not playing against a team that is playing a playoff game, it's not all that surprising that it looked that bad at times. So
no, I don't know. I mean, again, I think we're going to look back at this game and about the least memorable moments of the Andy Reid tenure in Kansas City, right? Honestly, I thought it was the wise way to go about it.
Sure.
I'll give you an example of a team that actually did the wrong thing yesterday. The circumstances are very different because they're on the polar opposite ends of the spectrum. But in a game that had zero meaning to the Chiefs, they had under 100 passing yards. They had under 30 rushing yards. Yesterday was the most get-out-of-here injury-free effort that you will ever see from a team. The Patriots, meanwhile, basically gave up the first pick for nothing. They moved down 3 slots in each round of the draft, all for a token win an hour before they'd fired their head coach. Patriots fans would have done backflips if they had just handed the football 45 times yesterday and turned it into a running clock game. So if anybody needs evidence about whether the Chiefs did the right thing or the wrong thing, they can point to that amongst other examples of teams, I think, handling yesterday or this weekend in a particularly clumsy fashion.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting, the mixture of cheers and boos during that Patriots game. When anything positive would happen, the boos, because I am with you. See, and it's just smart by the Buffalo Bills. They're so scared of the Patriots that they threw that game so the Patriots wouldn't have the number one pick. That's what I would say. No, the Bills did the right thing of resting all their players because they have to play next week. So we'll see. Field Yates is our guest from ESPN. Coaching openings that are taking place today. Jacksonville has relieved Doug Peterson. We already had the Chicago Bears, the Saints, and the Jets, and teams like that. But New England yesterday after the game, firing Gerard Mayo. This is sort of it comes up every year when there are a number of openings that are there. Is there a team or a situation that is better than another, that they may have more of their pick of the litter at coaches that may be out there?
Hard to say that I don't believe there is a clear, this job is decidedly better than the Field job this season. I think there's one of the 5 current openings right now that I have the hardest time making a case for, which is New Orleans. I think that's a job in which you got to prepare to take on some pain before you can realize your goals at a different time. So I'm not saying that it's an obvious fit. I would just, because there might be some appeal to it that other jobs don't have. Specifically the fact that you're in a division that I do feel like is winnable if you find some pixie dust over the next few years here. But I think between Chicago, the Jets, the Patriots, and the Jaguars, there's going to be a bit of a beauty in the eye of the beholder. So specific to the Patriots, the one that you referenced that opened up yesterday, I think this job has a couple of ways in which it's appealing. One, they have a bright young quarterback in Drake May. Two, they've got basically limitless resources. The reality is that the reason why they have all those resources is because they don't have any players, right? They are very bereft of talent. There's, maybe a handful of building blocks on this team. But, I think we realize around the NFL, you got a quarterback, you got a coach, you got a chance. It's at least a really darn good starting point. So you could make the case for them as the most appealing job. I think I could probably argue in court also for Chicago and Jacksonville and maybe even the Jets, because the Jets probably have the highest percentage of players who have been or can still be all pros on their roster. They just have a major conundrum in terms of the quarterback situation going forward, and all those guys who are going to be or have been or will be again in the future all pros are either making a lot of money like Quinnen Williams or about to make a whole lot of money in the case of a guy like Sauce Gardner. So your cap flexibility is different compared to a team like New England or Jacksonville.
Yeah, and the Jets are the only team or franchise out there that has head coach and GM opening right now. And by the way, the Chiefs have had two different people that have been requested by the Jets. Mike Borgonzi, general manager, assistant GM for the Chiefs, is the Jets have requested an interview with him, and Matt Nagy. The Jets have requested an interview with him, which maybe, I don't know, maybe the view on Matt Nagy has changed if they look at it and go, well, look how bad the Bears organization is. That guy went to the playoffs twice with Trubisky. Maybe he's pretty damn good. Who knows? I don't know.
Sure.
Field Yates is our –
I'll be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if Nagy gets, a few looks and maybe eventually gets a job as well. And I'll just say this, specific to Mike Borgonzi, is I think you're talking about it. I would make this case is that, I'd be curious if somebody can give me a compelling reason why he's not the most qualified general manager candidate in the entire landscape right now. I'm trying to think of, all right, so you're the assistant GM, which basically means that you're involved in every transaction. You're definitely involved in every facet of the organization. You're not making the final call, but I can't imagine there are too many things that Brett Veach does where he doesn't at least run it by Mike in some way, shape, or form, right? And on top of that, you're talking about already one of the greatest dynasties in the history of the NFL, including a roster that is totally shape-shifted, right? This was an offensive juggernaut that has become a defensive juggernaut. This is a team that had, wide receivers at the top of the market in terms, top of the heap financially, that now have a bunch of wide receivers that are making, minimal dollars, right? I mean, I'll talk about a team that has gotten it done in every single way, and I'm thinking to myself, why wouldn't that be the number one candidate on every single team that is going to examine a GM list? So, we're still so early on in the process, and it sounds like he'll get at least an interview with the Jets. But I would be making that call if I were any team that was pondering a GM change.
Visiting with Field Yates from ESPN. Surprised Lou Anarumo was the sacrificial lamb in Cincinnati today?
No, because I think that they had to do that. I wasn't surprised they did something, right? I mean, they were going to have to do something at some point. And with Lou, I think this is a little bit of a raw deal because, I say the sample size in general for Lou over the full course of his time in Cincinnati, I thought was representative of a guy who's got some real defensive chops. I think Cincinnati, and this is, again, going back to what the Chiefs have done with their roster and also their coaching staff, is that, we talked in prior conversations in earlier off seasons where amongst the most impressive parts about Kansas City is that they've kept this all up while integrating young defensive players and offensive players too, but because Anarumo's a defensive guy. And by the way, I'm not just talking about Trent McDuffie and George Karlaftis first-round picks, right? I mean, Jalen Watson, and prior to that, L'Jarius Sneed, and prior to that, I guess with that, Charvarius Ward, right? Guys who, Tank Wharton, these aren't exactly guys who, when they enter the league, it's like, oh, yeah, we expect them to become high-level contributors, right? So it felt like what happened in Cincinnati is that as they saw the defection of veteran players, the offseason they lost Jesse Bates and Von Bell, right? I mean, guys started to either go elsewhere in free agency or just couldn't be retained because the team had to invest so heavily at other spots on the roster. Cincinnati all of a sudden became really young on defense, and I felt like that youth caught up to them in a hurry. So while I understand why they made the move, I also think there is a reasonable chance that Lou Anarumo is a defensive coordinator somewhere sooner rather than later again.
Yeah, I would guess that would be the case as well. Field Yates from ESPN is our guest. All right, wanted to get your thoughts real quick on the AFC side in the playoff games this weekend. If you have some thoughts on those games, we'll start off with the first one that comes up is the Chargers and Texans. It seems like the consensus around here, Field, is that the Chiefs will most likely be playing against the Chargers, part 3 in this divisional matchup. Are people overlooking Houston too much? They're home underdogs by 2.5 and putting too much onto the Chargers, or is the right team favored and the Chargers going into Houston that are a team that's probably going to win that game?
Yeah, I think we can be logical and reasonable and say that it's understandable why this team, the Chargers, is favored going into the game because, the Texans have sort of sputtered to the finish line here. They got the win yesterday against a team that has literally the worst record in the NFL, the Chargers, who own the first pick in the 2025 NFL draft. And I think that, in setting playoff lines, I got to imagine that amongst the early criteria is quarterback and coach trust. And DeMeco Ryans is a good coach and C.J. Stroud's a good quarterback, but I would say that Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert have been better in both phases this year. So it's a team that very sturdy defensively as well. This is a team that has shown its capability of being kind of a talent maximizer, right? Guys who were either non-factors for the Chargers in 2023 or even left for dead, like Quentin Johnston. I mean, the guy has 186 receiving yards yesterday on 13 catches in a game in which, they were playing for something.
Yeah.
I was impressed just in general this year with how the Chargers kind of held their own in a lot of high leverage situations. The Chiefs obviously took this team down twice, but, they understand that if they do face them again, it's going to be a legit challenge. This is not a team that is going to, there's enough familiarity that they have at least a confidence that they can go to Kansas City and make this a somewhat competitive game.
Pittsburgh and Baltimore, that's the second game on Saturday. Does Pittsburgh have enough to make it a game or go into Baltimore and win?
I don't think so. I just think this team is going the wrong way fast. And with Pittsburgh, any given Sunday, and they have traditionally played Baltimore relatively tough, but, not recently, or at least in their last matchup. And, Baltimore, I think, is very good. Pittsburgh, I think, I think my question, if I were a team that a fan of the team would be this, is that it's really, really good to win more than you lose during the course of the season, but they've kind of become the golfer that always hits in the 80s and never breaks par. It's like, for somebody who maybe did so back in the day, all of a sudden it's like, yeah, you go 9-8, 10-7, maybe even 11-6, but you have lost, I believe, 5 straight playoff games right now. And I just, that's not the standard for the Pittsburgh Steelers. The standard is to be a Super Bowl champion. And I'm not trying to pinpoint this on Mike Tomlin specifically, but I think he is often the person that we associate their recent run of above 500 success with. I just wonder if they don't win on Saturday, Saturday? Shoot, I've already forgotten. If they don't win Saturday, if they don't win on Saturday and then they bring back Russell Wilson without major roster shakeup, I wonder if this team is going to sort of be asking for the same fate in future years as well.
Last one, Denver and Buffalo. I like the Broncos plus 9.5 here, but I think the Buffalo Bills win. I think the matchup is interesting with the secondary that Denver has and their defense and way Bo Nix is playing right now. What do you think of this game, Denver and Buffalo?
And 9.5 is a big number, isn't it?
It is.
That's a real big number there. I was surprised by that because one thing about, a team and its confidence, and I guess this applies to the Chargers as well, is that, like, the Broncos will use that number in their favor. Like, I don't think Sean Payton is afraid of really anybody in the NFL because Sean's a confident guy who's won at the highest levels before. But I think they're going in there saying to themselves, like, this is a legitimate, like, what do we have to lose situation for Denver. And, I think there's pressure on every team in the NFL. That's inherent to the role that GMs and coaches have and players on teams have. I do also wonder, though, if Buffalo maybe enters the playoffs with about as much pressure as any team in the playoff field. There are a couple others that I think probably fit that category. But I just, with the fact they had so much success, but the fact that they have – I saw this on the CBS game yesterday. Like, it kind of blew my mind. I didn't realize this. The Bills had only played in one AFC Championship game with Sean McDermott. For some reason, I felt like
Yeah.
It feels like 3, right? They just come up short, but just 1. Like, it does feel like, and not to the point. Like, when I say pressure, I don't mean that, like, if they don't win on this weekend, they're going to blow this whole thing up, and Josh Allen's going to be playing for a different team or something. More just like, at some point, you can't keep wasting these legitimate shots that you have, and so I do think Buffalo has some pressure there, and a team that I think the best version of the Bills is outstanding. There's no denying that, but I think Denver's going to go in there ready and certainly fearless. And it sounds like decent weather on Sunday for Buffalo standards. So it doesn't sound like that's going to be much of a factor, which it has been in prior games there.
All right, we usually take the pulse each and every week. There's the last one for you. Super Bowl who over who? It's right now in your mind, and then we'll keep updating it as the weeks go along.
I was going to say, plenty of predictions from the preseason. You can call me out on that we're wrong, and I'll take the heat. But I picked Chiefs over the Lions, and at this point, no reason to change my mind. They got to win 2 games each to make that at least a possibility. So I'll stick with what we have, and feel pretty good about it right now.
All right, Field Yates, ESPN. Field, you're the man as always. Appreciate it, brother. Enjoy the football this weekend, and we will talk next week when we find out who the matchup is for the Chiefs. Thank you, man.
Thank you, sir. Talk to you then.
Absolutely. There's Field Yates from ESPN. Great stuff from him. We'll find out the AFC, the first 3 games this weekend, the 2 games on Saturday and the first game on Sunday, all of the AFC games. We'll find out roughly around 3 o'clock on Sunday who the Chiefs will play, because that game is the Bills and Broncos. So we would know that they would face the Broncos if they won. So we will not find out who the Chiefs face off against until the final game of the AFC. Luckily, though, that's Sunday, mid-afternoon. We'll find out. Maybe we'll find out earlier than 3 o'clock, if that game gets out of hand. We'll find out. We'll see. But he's got Chiefs over Lions right now, so we picked at the beginning of the season, so he's picking heading into the postseason, and we'll see. We try to take the pulse each and every week with Field, see where he's at as the weeks go along. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, continue rolling. Tyreek Hill wants out of Miami. He's not happy. He wanted out of the game, apparently.
Don't take my funniest. It just recently happened, so.
No, I haven't seen anything that's happened today.
It's an hour ago, but
okay,
it's my
so
funniest.
I won't take your funniest, but we'll talk a little bit about Tyreek Hill wanting out. Maybe other games were blowouts this year, and those teams weren't necessarily laying down or taking a dive. And look at that L'Jarius Sneed trade. From the Chiefs' perspective here. And we talked a little bit about the different things in the game yesterday for the Chiefs that we watched and saw, and any takeaways like DJ Humphries at left tackle and things like that. We'll take a timeout, come back, more Zone next. Got some Learn Funniest Best coming up about 1:20 or so. At the end of this hour, we'll revisit Sad Fans Bengals from week 2. Just because, because we can. And maybe we want to. Maybe we've got that freedom to do that. Tonight at 6 o'clock, Hawk Talk with Bill Self and then a little best of. But as the week rolls along right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB, we've got all of the college football playoff games for you starting on Thursday and all of the NFL playoff games for you starting on Saturday. It's all going to be right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Tyreek Hill, year 3 in Miami, got the bag. Chiefs couldn't come to an agreement. Made a fantastic trade, a trade that has changed the franchise trajectory. Not only the trade and acquiring the assets, but also utilizing those. I mean, I've talked about before that the process in Philadelphia, I don't think was flawed logic. I don't think it was flawed strategy. I think the usage of what they acquired ended up being flawed. You acquired draft picks and you spent them on Markelle Fultz and Ben Simmons. Sometimes you have a lucky year when you're the number 1 pick and LeBron comes out. Sometimes you have the number 1 pick and it's Oliver Candy. You just, or it's Bennett. You never really know who it's going to be from time to time and what that guy's going to end up being. Sometimes it could be entire franchise changing. The Chiefs took advantage of their assets.
Yeah, sometimes you trade Eric Dickerson to the Colts and don't use any of those draft picks the right way, and then you trade Herschel Walker to the Vikings as Jimmy Johnson and start a dynasty.
Exactly, 100%. And so the Chiefs trade Tyreek Hill, and they turn those draft picks, and having the number of draft picks to be able to work the draft board and also throw numbers at certain positions. They were able to get some players that have been pretty awesome for the Chiefs. And it has changed some things, especially in a salary-capped league with Patrick Mahomes making the money that he's making. It's not the most expensive contract in the league, but you get the point. Tyreek Hill, after year 3 in Miami, they do not make the playoffs. The first time in Tyreek Hill's career, he has not made the playoffs. No Tua for a good portion. That certainly has an impact. But, they needed the Chiefs to lose or beat the Broncos, and they needed to beat the Jets. Neither of those things actually happened.
Because we were scared of the Dolphins.
Well, that's right. That's a good point. The Chiefs did lose to the Broncos because they did not want to have to face off against the Dolphins, in which the Chiefs just assumed the Dolphins were going to beat the Jets. So, if the Dolphins beat the Jets, would we be having the conversation about the Chiefs being scared of the Dolphins?
No, because again, the Dolphins have achieved a Super Bowl in their franchise's history. There's levels of expectations, and there's a culture and things like pride, where the Bengals don't have any of that.
Okay, very good. Where on the flip side, you have the Bengals team here. Yeah. That's right. Here is, let's play Mike McDaniel first because I didn't cut the full clip of Tyreek Hill. I only cut the clip of Tyreek Hill talking about the future. But at the beginning of his clip, he says that, the coach took me out. He says, coach took me out of the game. Mike McDaniel first. He said, coach took me out of the game, Tyreek Hill said, and was asked, is it the injury? And he was like, the wrist. And he's like, oh, yeah, some other things. But, we looked up at the scoreboard. Chiefs were losing. At that point, what it is. And coach took me out of the game. Here's Mike McDaniel when asked about Tyreek not playing in the fourth quarter.
I was informed that he was unavailable right before a drive. I was not informed that it was a new injury, and I think at that point in time my focus was on the players, and I didn't take the time to go try to figure out more into that. Just there was guys on the field that were competing, and we were trying to win a game, so my focus was there.
Now, very easily could have been told Tyreek's not available and just said, okay, fine, whatever, and moved on and didn't know that it was a new injury. But Tyreek says, well, coach took me out of the game. Well, no, coach took me out. Now, he didn't say Coach Mike McDaniel. It seemed like there was an assistant coach the way that he was alluding to it. But here's Tyreek Hill later on in his press conferences, at the very end of his press conference, the last minute or so, he was asked in the last question, as a captain, what would you say to the guys as they head into the offseason?
I don't even know, bro. You know, this is my first time I haven't been in the playoffs, man. So, I mean, for me, like I said, man, I just got to do what's best for me and my family, dog. If that's here or that's wherever the case may be, man, I'm finna open that door for myself, dog. As I'm opening the door, like I'm out, bro. You know, so it was great playing here, but you know, at the end of the day, bro, I got to do what's best for, you know, for my career and, you know, what's best. Because I'm too much of a competitor to be, you know, just out there.
Mean you thinking about leaving here?
If it is, hey, yeah.
So when he starts answering, he said, yeah, well, and then he just starts walking away. And then he stops and says, yes. So he's opening up the door. He has to think about himself and his career and wants out of Miami. Enjoyed playing there, but he's done and obviously would probably like to get traded at this point. And no, I don't think the Chiefs should be in the market of trading for Tyreek Hill. I think the Chiefs are perfectly fine with what they have. They've gone that route. Tyreek Hill was awesome. He's the best wide receiver in Chiefs history. They won a Super Bowl with him. He was great, put up awesome numbers. They traded him, got the value out of what they traded him for, and they have used that, and they have moved on, and they've won 2 Super Bowls since then, and they've proven that they don't need Tyreek Hill to win a Super Bowl. They need a balanced team overall, and Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, and a defense that can, you know, do some things as well. They've proven the wide receiver core can be what it's been the last 2 years, and now into year number 3 without Tyreek Hill and win a Super Bowl.
If they trade Tyreek back to the Chiefs, the owners will get together and force Stephen Ross to sell the team after the tanking stuff and all. But that's kind of a joke. But seriously, they are never going to do that. That would be them admitting they're wrong and not only trading the piece back to the team that never needs help, that no one ever wants to help and doesn't need receivers, but you also accomplished absolutely nothing with this player and then gave them to pretty good players in George Karlaftis and Trent McDuffie.
Yeah.
And a third rounder, I think, as well.
Well, they had, they used the pick that they were going to have from the Dolphins and traded up to get McDuffie.
Yes. Okay.
So they have McDuffie.
Karlaftis, they already had the
Karlaftis
pick.
was their pick in that spot, but they also used one of the picks the next year to package to trade up and get Rashee Rice. So I did the whole thing at one point, just had every single pick, where it ended up, what was traded for, and then like what the final tally ended up being. And I think with trade downs and things like that, I'm not sure that they may have even got to the final tally yet. I got to go and do that again. But the Chiefs clearly won that trade because also the cap space that they've used for whether that be Chris Jones or Joe Tooney or Javon Taylor, but Patrick Mahomes, you know, other areas that they've used the cap space that they would not have if they were spending $25, $26, $27 million against the cap for Tyreek Hill. Like, people can argue and say the cap is not real, but the cap is real. The cap is not real for any 1 or 2 or 3 players on any team. But the cap is real for the overall team and making sure you can field a competitive 1 through 53. And the Chiefs have been very aware of fielding a competitive 1 through 53. And they came to a crossroads a couple of years ago and decided the best course of action was to get the assets to move on and not spend that much money on a wide receiver. And good on them for doing that. They didn't feel beholden to, no, this is how we've done it. I don't want to know a world that there is no Mahomes, Tyreek, and Travis Kelce. Well, we know that world. There's 2 more Lombardis sitting in the trophy case since they made that deal. And now we know, with the L'Jarius Sneed trade, we'll see what pick 66 ends up being. Maybe they package pick number 66 and their first rounder to move up and get somebody. And you say, okay, they traded L'Jarius Sneed in their first rounder to move up and get the left tackle of the future. I don't know. Defensive end of the future. I don't know. But whatever they get with number 66, the strategy behind trading L'Jarius Sneed is great. I like it. Because they've proven this year they can go and be 15-1 and get the number 1 seed without L'Jarius Sneed. And it's unfortunate. I wish L'Jarius Sneed was having an awesome season for the Titans. But he's not. He only played in 5 games this year. He last played October 13th for the Titans. But that was also part of trading him, is that he had the knee injury. He was on the injury report every single week last year. He missed all of training camp last year and then was on the injury report every single week. He's been dealing with that knee for a while. And so if you're going to give all that money to a cornerback, it can't be somebody that you worry any given week that guy might be out for the season. That's the difference between Snead and Trent McDuffie, why I think they're going to give Trent McDuffie the money. One, because Charvarius Ward, they can move on because they had Snead. And Snead, they can move on because they had McDuffie. McDuffie, you can't really move on because you don't have anybody to replace him right now at that cornerback spot. Unless you draft somebody and he turns out to be awesome, then maybe you can walk away from Trent McDuffie. But Trent McDuffie has been awesome and also has been healthy. That's not what L'Jarius Snead. L'Jarius Snead only had one of those two things. Now, he played in every game. That's the thing. It's like he played in every game. He was on the injury report every single week. But it felt like it was a ticking time bomb that only a matter of time before he's missing 2, 3, 4 weeks, an extended period of time because of the injury that's there. And that's what happened this year for the Tennessee Titans. And even when he played, Titans fans weren't enamored with his play. And I think part of that is Steve Spagnuolo being a defensive coordinator and the assistant coaches for the Chiefs and putting guys in the right position, taking advantage of their skill set. And him being healthy. Look, he signed 4 years, $76 million in Tennessee. And next year's cap hit for L'Jarius Snead is $24 million for the Titans. That would be $24 million for the Chiefs next year. Who do they have or don't they have on their team this offseason into next year if the cap hit for Snead was $24 million? Or if the cap hit for Tyreek Hill? Because you wouldn't have McDuffie. You would then be forced to pay L'Jarius Snead, right? I mean, if you didn't have Trent McDuffie, maybe you stay put in, well, you wouldn't. Maybe you draft Kyer Elam instead of George Karlaftis. You have one draft pick that year. You've got Tyreek Hill. You don't trade him. You've got one draft pick that year. You're on the clock. Elam's there, and Karlaftis is there. And you need a cornerback, so you take Kyer Elam. Not saying they would, but there's an alternate universe that's scary to be in. You know, instead they got McDuffie and Karlaftis. So that they clearly took advantage of a lot of those things. Sky Moore didn't turn out to be the receiver they were hoping he would be. Darian Kennard didn't turn out to be the offensive lineman they were hoping he would be. But they took Sky Moore and Brian Cook. They got Kennard and Joshua Williams and Watson and Pacheco and Najee Johnson there later on in the draft. If they didn't have all those picks, what if they take Kennard instead of Jalen Watson? If they take, Kennard instead of Isaiah Pacheco? You know what I mean? They take Sky Moore and not having those 2 second-round picks, one from Miami and their own, they get Sky Moore and Brian Cook. Then their own pick, they just take Sky Moore. And now you don't have Brian Cook. I mean, they're using all of those picks together. It's not just the specific picks that they selected for the Tyreek Hill trade. It's also being able to play the draft board and throw numbers at certain things, and it has worked out in their favor like gangbusters. And now Tyreek Hill got his bag, put up a ton of numbers, didn't make the playoffs for the first time, and now wants out of Miami.
That's why if they were to trade him back to Kansas City, the owners would force Stephen Ross to sell because no owner is doing that. Not only are you admitting that you completely lost the trade, you're giving the team back the piece that they gave you to use all your draft picks to basically build a dynasty.
Yeah.
And you paid him too. So they don't even have to pay him.
That's right. Exactly. And you would have only the guaranteed dollars.
They would rather trade him to the Patriots, Bills, or Jets than the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's and that would make sense. You trade him to anybody but the Chiefs. Yeah. All right, we'll take a timeout. We'll come back, continue rolling in the 1 o'clock hour. Todd Lebo will hang out with us. We got Learn Funniest Best coming up on the other side. We'll get to Sad Fans Bengals Week 2 edition. We're just breaking that out for no reason whatsoever. More Zone next. Johnson joined us in the first couple of hours. We went through the things that we saw in the Chiefs' loss to the Broncos, the absurd narrative coming out of that game, the different coach openings out there, and then ranked our AFC playoff teams 1 through 7. But because of this narrative that's out there and permeating throughout the national conversation, locally in some cities or one, we decided for no reason to just simply break out sad fans, and we randomly chose throughout the whole season just put all these different names in a hat of teams, and then drew randomly, and it ended up being the Bengals from week 2 sad fans. Now, what we didn't tell everybody is that we put 15 different names in there of teams. They were all Bengals, just 15 different times. So let's go ahead and rehash this, because there may be a Sad Fans Bengals edition later on this week from this past weekend. I'm not sure. But here's Sad Fans Bengals from week 2, just for S's and G's. And now, things Bengals fans said on Reddit in week 2. These Chiefs are way more annoying than the Pats were. It's the insane luck, the constant love from the commentators, the constant Taylor Swift reactions, and the constant cuts to KC players who barely did shit in the game, all shouting and chanting like they just solved world hunger. If they gave out Grammys for wasting timeouts in the first and third quarter, Zach Taylor would be Taylor Swift. Also, Taylor Swift.
I forgot how much Taylor Swift hate there was.
Romo's doctor doesn't prescribe Viagra. He just has him watch videos of Mahomes throwing a football. Hey guys, T. Higgins is going to be a great addition when he plays one of his 6 games this year. All right, guys, going to go give myself alcohol poisoning now. It's perfect that Joe Burrow's hair looks like Eminem, since this damn team keeps shooting themselves like Cheddar Bob.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know, I heard the refs even bailed out that Chiefs fan bank robber dude.
That's not true.
All right, guys, good half. Adjustments for the second half? Have the refs call offensive holding.
There it is. Yeah, gotta be.
Tony Romo's morning routine. 1, 2, shower. 3, shave. 4, stare at a naked picture of Mahomes. I mean, I'd love for CBS to actually show a replay of why Jamar was mad, an obvious face mask, but they're not going to show it. Reply, easy, it was a face mask. Reply, face mask. I mean, this is absurd. Reply, he was pulled down by his face mask. Reply, they're not going to show it. They don't want to show that the Chiefs got away with one. Reply, Jamar's never this mad if nothing happened. Reply, he was pulled down by his face mask. Reply, maybe it wasn't the face mask.
Oh, man.
Only a Chiefs game would someone get called for a technical foul. I mean, you can't make this shit up. I don't know, but the vibes are weird all over the place in this game. Arrowhead seems dead, and Jamar just tried to stab a ref. Great, another injury to our defensive line. We're about to get into create-a-player mode. Kansas City, Taylor Swift, Andy Reid's old cheeseburger and nugget-eating ass, the official crew, Kermit the Frog, come on. The end.
That didn't stop, though. That
Tony
was
Romo can eat an entire bag of Reply, he would if the bag was labeled Mahomes. The Chiefs' left tackle won't hold his baby as much as he's holding Trey today.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Holy guys, they're calling KC for holding. The pearly gates are opening up, hell is freezing over, and I have a happy marriage.
That can't be true because Kingsley didn't get
This
his
game
hands
should have
on
been ours a long time ago, and we're probably about to fold. That's the difference that separates us from being great. Joe Burrow can't close out a tab, let alone a big game. Woo! The Chiefs are now in. The refs will figure out a way to give them the game range. No way they miss. Well, the good news is my January's now free.
It is.
Hey guys,
What a
we're
prediction.
still undefeated in the division.
Well done. Well, January 4th wasn't free.
And now, the runner-up to things Bengals fans have said on Reddit. Yet again, I watched that last drive and had hope. I'm the dog that thinks every car out the window is my owner. But since I'm a Bengals fan, I should realize I was dropped off in an open field and watched the car speed away a long time ago.
But it's the Chiefs' fault.
And now the winner of things Bengals fans have said on Reddit. Well, that was a kick to the
There you go. Yeah, and you know what?
Continue that the rest of the year, right up until January 5th.
Scariest team in the NFL.
Absolutely, man. Joe Burrow can't close a bar tab, let alone a big game. Wow. Whew. Turned out to be prophetic because there were a lot of games where Joe Burrow put up great numbers, but there in the fourth quarter couldn't get it done.
Also, their January's free. Well, now it's free.
That's right.
Most of their January's free.
Absolutely. After January 4th, totally free. That's right. 1, 2, 3 Cancun. But it's only because the Chiefs lost to the Broncos. But that sad fans from Bengals in week 2 was 1 week after they lost to the Patriots at home. Imagine that one. Whew. No idea what that would be like. I can only imagine what that will sound like later on this week. I don't know. Maybe we won't have to imagine it later on. Todd Liebel coming up next.
his time and place. He fits right in there. And that's
Todd Liabo.
Kansas City.
I hate Lee, though.
Todd Liabo will get to the bottom.
All right, last hour here on a snowy, frigid, cold Monday in Kansas City. Icy and snowy. That was a nice little treat. You know, like sometimes you have like a dessert, and then you get to the bottom, you're like, ooh, that was a nice, I didn't realize that was a part of the dessert. It's a nice little treat that you knew was there with the ice, that when the snow came off the car.
Yeah.
And then right under the snow was that layer of ice. Like, oh, yeah, that's right. That's a nice little surprise. I knew it was there. I just didn't think it was that thick. Go ahead, Dylan. That's for Friday. You knew it was there, but man, that thing, it was interesting. 6:15 or so, I think, is when I started on the car outside, and I think 7:05 is when it was ready to go.
You got to clean your garage out, get that car inside for those
Expedition
days.
doesn't fit in the garage.
Doesn't fit?
Does not fit in the garage.
Went too big, should have gone Explorer.
Yeah, I know, right, just to fit in the garage, just for days like this, you know.
My brother and sister-in-law live, like Waldo, so they have older detached garage thing. The doors are the size the doors are, unless you're building a new garage, whatever. So they had a Honda Pilot. It was 2004 or 5 or something. It fit in there real nice. Well, you know what? Time to get a new car. Pilots are bigger.
Yeah.
They had to get a different one because it was not, and it still barely fits in, and it apparently doesn't have the function where the lift gate at the back will go 3/4 away. It's either all the way open or closed. Yeah. Can't open it in the garage. You got to open that thing. You got to back it out.
Back it out.
That's a deal.
Yeah.
You got to make sure she fits.
The Honda Accord and the Toyota Venza, they fit barely. It's a few inches space there, but they both fit. That Expedition ain't no chance.
No chance.
He's got the back end hanging out. Now, when it's hail, we have moved my wife's car out because it's
and then older car,
pushed it as far in. Yeah. It's like just a little bit hanging out on the backside. But snow and ice, that's fine. I'll deal with it in the morning. It's all good. Huh? You know, I was a little excited. You know, click that thing onto the snow, feature, and 4-wheel drive, and said, let's get to work. First time, you know. I was kind of excited about it. Weirdly enough.
Handled different than the 04 Accord or whatever
it did, yes. It was able to get through snow. So, yes, it handled a little bit differently.
Listen, you always got where you need to go in that Accord.
Yeah, the Accord, I wouldn't have been here today. That's for sure. If that Accord, I wouldn't have been out of the driveway.
Those bald-ass tires you had on there that I was telling you about for years. You need new tires.
Yeah, but why am I going to get new tires when I'm about to sell it? And then when I sell it, that person's going to know it needs new tires. They're going to look at it and say, I need new tires. Exactly. That's why I'm not charging you, more than I'm charging you right now. If I get new tires now, what's the point?
I hear you.
No big deal,
I hear you.
I'm just going.
It's not
I'm driving 7 minutes back roads.
It's not like I'm crazy and cleared my driveway 6 times.
Did you?
Oh yeah.
You did.
I'm a nutbag.
Man, I sat there last night. My plan was, after the Chiefs game was over, to then listen to the post-game show while shoveling the driveway, right? So I didn't have to worry about anything in the morning. And then for some reason it just kept snowing. And I'm like, okay, well, it's going to stop soon, and then I can go out there and drive. And at 9 o'clock, it was still snowing. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to have to deal with it tomorrow morning, really tomorrow afternoon when I get home. But tomorrow morning, just going to drive through it, which sucks because when there isn't ice underneath it and you drive through your driveway, then you get back, that's turned into ice where the tire tracks were. I don't have to worry about that because it's ice underneath it anyway. So,
it's all good.
Bleep it, I'll just go. But I thought it was going to be over around 6 or so. But it just kept snowing and kept snowing. So.
Where I lived, it didn't snow that late. I'm crazy though, so I guess like 10 in the morning. I went out and got the first little layer off. Whatever.
Yeah, we had some neighbors that were out there shoveling at like 10 in the morning.
And then I did it again a little while, and then I'm gonna do it real quick right with the Chiefs game. Just get along the layer. Yeah. And then the Chiefs game was so bad, I'll do it again. Then I did it again, and then before I went to bed, I did it because then it was snowing a little bit, and I didn't want to have like 3 or 4 inches of snow to clear off in the morning. So I did that. Then this morning when I woke up at like 5:15, I did it again. And now I'm keep looking at the...
Did you do any measurements in your yard or anything?
Well, I tried to, but it's just, it's just not real. Where I tried to do it where it looked sensible, it was about 9 or 10 inches of snow. And some people say there was a foot of snow in Lee Summit. I don't know. It was plenty. And I would rather move 2 or 3 inches of snow 4, 5, 6 times than try to do.
That's what I'm going to do today.
A foot of snow.
That's what I'm going to do
one
today.
Time.
My driveway's about 10 inches.
I'm looking at my ring cam every once in a while because now I'm getting some good meltage, man.
Nice. Okay, great.
I'm a crazy.
You like looking at the driveway to see that it's.
Yeah, I'm watching the thing. I didn't have the camera in the front of my house until I put it up there like last year. Look at that melting going on.
Oh, that's nice.
Huh?
That's some good melting.
Is that some good
South
melting?
facing?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
South facing. You gotta have south facing.
Oh, dude, yeah, ours is south facing, and I feel bad for our neighbors across the street because the sun up and down, it barely gets to the end of their driveway. Barely, like all 4 houses, like right in front of ours, is like their driveway is till the
Across
end
the
of
street.
winter. Yeah, 100%.
Yep.
That's how it is.
Joey.
That's more sun than my neighbors get.
You
right
almost
there.
just
That's
have to
way
get
more
like the top layer off on a south side house, and then the sun does the rest.
Yep.
Versus the other one is like
Exactly
you'll
right.
have it for like weeks.
Yep, it looks
Maybe
clear.
months.
Yeah.
With these temps we're gonna have.
Oh my God, yeah. I'm hoping in a couple of weeks the temps are at least normal for that Saturday, divisional round game that the Chiefs will play. I'm assuming it'll be a Saturday. You think it'll be a Saturday
I think it'll
game?
be Saturday. I mean, it just looks like it because they're likely.
It's already
opponents.
scheduled for Saturday, the Chiefs and whoever they play? Okay,
Yeah.
my bad. Lions
Okay,
and Chiefs on
good.
Saturday.
They
I did
did
not
that?
see that. Thank you, Dylan.
So that's done.
So
Saturday.
Lions and Chiefs on Saturday. I thought they typically had the bye, the team that was on the bye that played that Saturday, because the Ravens played the Texans last year on that Saturday, and then the Chiefs and Bills played on Sunday night. The last game of the divisional round weekend was on Sunday night against the Bills, and then obviously headed to Baltimore for a Sunday afternoon because the AFC Championship game in the AFC this year is Sunday night. So I'm hoping the weather will cooperate here in Kansas City if the Chiefs play 2 more games. So in a couple of weeks when we know they're playing one, that the weather will be a little bit nicer than the 6 degrees or feels like 15 degrees below, which is tomorrow morning. That'll be fun. So 15 below is
I was
the
happy
tomorrow
to
morning
have
feels
no
like.
game there yesterday because that would have been a bad
man.
game to not matter.
Yes.
To have
been
anyone out there doing anything for any reason.
Would have been
It
absolutely
was bad
brutal.
enough we had the freezing cold game in January for the Dolphins game at home, but that was a playoff game.
Yeah.
I mean, and that was no
Right.
snow.
That was no snow. That was just frigid Arctic temperatures. What's it supposed to be this weekend if we had a game? 31.
Not great. Not great.
I mean, 31 degrees, low of 16. If they played that game this year, wild card round, a little bit different than the minus 30.
Yeah.
Feels like last year. So we'll see what 2 weeks look like. But as Dylan has informed us, that the Chiefs and Lions have been scheduled for the divisional round game on that Saturday. And then they would have an extra day of rest if they were to win that game over whoever their opponent would be, either Baltimore or Buffalo. That'll be playing on Sunday, because then the Chiefs would be playing on Sunday that next week. The Chiefs are the betting favorites in the AFC. Baltimore is the second betting favorite, which I thought was sort of interesting because Baltimore has to go to Buffalo and to Kansas City. If that's how it turns out, by chalk, Baltimore goes to Buffalo, goes to Kansas City if they were to win the AFC. And Buffalo's the third betting favorite that would at least have a home game against Baltimore. But Vegas is liking what they're seeing in Baltimore, and the Chargers are the fourth betting favorite. So Chiefs might be playing in the divisional round against a Chargers team that the odds makers view as the fourth best team, which if 2 and 3 are playing each other and you're playing number 4, that's how it really typically should be.
And listen,
1 plays 4, 2 plays 3.
I mean, it's I don't know if this always happens. I don't think this always happens, but everybody in the field, the Chiefs have played this year.
Yeah.
All of them. And that can't always happen because you're just going to miss one of them somehow. But the same teams won the divisions this year. Like their schedule next year is like the same thing.
Yeah.
Houston's coming here. They're going to Buffalo just because the same
Baltimore.
teams win all the divisions.
Yep.
So
turns out they're going to play Denver, LA, and Vegas 2
all of
times
them.
next year. Wow.
And now they'll get the Lions again because they won last night. Lions will come here. But it's interesting that they've played them all, and they've played most of them fairly recently because they just got through playing Pittsburgh. And the Ravens are the long time ago, but the Buffalo one wasn't forever ago. And they played Houston, and they played Denver, obviously, and the Chargers. And the Chargers played the Chiefs tough twice this year. I mean, they took a doink to go through to win one of them. It was a 7-point game out there. That was the day that Rasheed Rice got hurt.
Rice on that second drive was out for the game. So first drive, Carson Steele fumbled. Second drive, Rasheed Rice out for the season.
The Chiefs have been great this year, 15 wins, all of that. They did have a lot of close games. I think they were playing better later. I'm not putting much stock in what happened yesterday, but I'm not sitting here sleeping like, oh, it's going to be really easy. They'll just win their 2 playoff games because nothing has been super easy in these games.
I feel a lot better. I would have felt a lot better if Pittsburgh had knocked off the Bengals and it was Pittsburgh and Houston playing each other. And then if it went to form, they would play the winner of the Steelers and Texans. I don't have as much confidence with the Chargers heading to town that I do if it were the Texans or the Steelers heading to town. I don't think the Steelers go to Baltimore and win the game. And I do think the Chargers go to Houston and win. And I think Buffalo takes care of business. So I think it's going to be Chiefs and Chargers in that divisional round. And really, for me, Todd, it's the last dragon and demon to slay for the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. He's taken care of so much business in the playoffs and the nightmares of the past. But the last one would be divisional round, number 1 seed, coming off a bye, and Jim Harbaugh coming into your stadium in the divisional round. Wearing cleats, by the way. In cleats. So
suited up, ready to go.
That was a 15-year-old Jason with tears streaming down his face after that kick was missed there and after the 4 different interceptions. 95 Colts.
No, I mean, which kick?
Oh, which kick?
Missed
the
3,
last,
right?
the one at the end.
The final one?
The final one of the 3 that they missed.
The final?
Yes, that's right. The final of the 3 that they missed, and too late going to Gannon, and bringing him in the game. Look, oh wow, they were moving the football after that. When you don't throw it to the other team, but
hey, listen, those
beat
things,
Harbaugh.
Those things all got buried.
I know, except this one.
The
This is
Harbaugh
the last
didn't.
one.
I mean, but the Colts part got buried.
Colts part got buried.
The
That's
Harbaugh part hasn't gotten buried.
Yeah, Denver in the playoffs at home. That was 97. That hasn't gotten buried yet either.
Not yet.
So if Denver or the Chargers win, that would be that opportunity.
I think the 3 Super Bowl parades maybe have buried some of that stuff.
I mean,
it's supposed to.
Potato, it's fine. If you
get over these things.
Just feel like you're picking and choosing here, right? And as I've said, like, people are talking about different things with the Chiefs in the past, and I'm like, Mahomes has changed everything, man. He's changed what it was like. It went from Montana to Mahomes to win a home playoff game at Arrowhead.
Long time.
At Arrowhead. Yeah. You wouldn't think it would take that long to win a game at home, but Montana to Mahomes, and now it's like they don't lose.
That was why the Bengals loss was so shocking and felt so weird to everyone, because it was like he malfunctioned at halftime and it went back to the old Chiefs.
And it went from just cruising to their, 3rd straight Super Bowl, and it's like they're up 18 points. Like, they're up 21-3. This thing is over. The Bengals cannot stop the Chiefs defensively. And the Chiefs are going to just keep getting the ball back. And even if the Bengals catch up, the Chiefs won't be there anymore.
You should probably go back to study it, but you don't want to. That second half and the overtime was about as ugly as you could have. Especially with what the Chiefs fans had been used to. And listen, that was still Tyreek Hill. Yes. Travis Kelce and all that. That wasn't like finding your way.
The last of Tyreek Hill.
Tyreek Hill's final touch as a Chief was to touch the ball and have the Bengals intercepted.
Was it 28 points in one half, or was it 21?
It was 20. It was 21-3.
Okay.
And then it was 20,
right before half. They
should have been 24.
Then 21-10.
Yeah, and then it should have been 24 or
24, 28.
More. Yeah.
And as bad as that second half is, if they just kick the field goal or Tyreek Hill goes out of bounds, they win on regulation on Harrison Butker's tying field goal.
I mean, there's a lot of woulda, coulda, shoulda. If Chris Jones sacks Joe Burrow, if was it Melvin Ingram? If he sacks Joe Burrow, both of those times he got out of 3rd downs, and that was when they kicked a field goal to take the 24-21 lead.
Such a weird game.
God, it was so odd.
It was just weird.
They had an RPO that was a wide open run, and everybody thought it was a run, and Mahomes threw an interception.
Regulation, I mean, Patrick just drops the ball, and they almost lost it right there. They ended up kicking the field goal, win the toss. I mean, everything worked out, and then just couldn't get anything going. That was a weird one, but since then, they've beaten the Bengals at home in the playoffs.
They've won 7 playoff games since that game.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Won 7 playoff games since they lost that game. And that's sort of my issue with the whole dumb narrative nationally about the Chiefs and the Bengals. Like, since that second half and overtime against the Bengals, the Chiefs have beaten Jacksonville, Cincinnati, Philadelphia, Miami, Buffalo, Baltimore, San Francisco in the postseason. They have all of those postseason wins since that overtime loss that they blew an 18-point lead when COVID restrictions were still going on. Like, it was that long ago, and somehow that is the game that is still sort of permeating around that the Chiefs are worried about this Bengals team. And I don't.
We don't have to worry about the Bengals team. They're not in.
No, not at all.
Joe Burrow has made the playoffs twice in his career.
Yeah, Andy Reid stopped worrying about the Bengals after week 2. It's the last time Andy Reid thought about the Cincinnati Bengals was after week 2 when they beat them, and then moving on.
That's
to
the beauty of the way they run it. He really doesn't care about those things. And everyone who's been running around where, well, they're doing this because they want this. The Chiefs just went out there and did the best thing for the Chiefs yesterday. Now, listen, they would have preferred it not to be this ugly.
Not to get destroyed.
They would have preferred Carson Wentz to have 3 seconds to throw sometimes and, maybe not have the ball bounce off everyone in the world and be a touchdown. But whatever. It doesn't really matter. They would have preferred to travel easier, and they've gotten home last night. I mean, a lot of things haven't worked well on this trip, but now that is part of history.
And they don't have to play this weekend and worry about the travel and being back late on a Monday, and now you play on a Saturday. And
they don't have a flight again until they hopefully go to New Orleans.
Yeah, so that's exactly right. That's exactly right. The next flight they take will be to New Orleans, which will be awesome if that is
they hope to get on a charter again this season.
Absolutely, that would be awesome, and they would be taking care of business if they did that. And I think Denver has a chance in Buffalo. I don't think Denver pulls it off and wins in Buffalo. I think they do have a chance. But my guess is that it's Chiefs and Chargers.
Probably so. It is funny. Like, we are all kind of like hyped up on Denver right now because, they're looking good. But they just peed down their pants 2 times in a row with a chance to clinch the playoff spot
against the
Chargers
Bengals.
And the Bengals.
Yeah, they had overtime twice. They had the ball twice in overtime.
They had the ball, and then they didn't get it done, and all of a sudden they beat the Chiefs' backups, and not even backups.
Yeah, right.
They beat a watered down version of the Chiefs team, and now we're like, oh man, they really got it going. I
know.
But listen, I like a lot of things about Denver. I like their coach. I like their coach quarterback combination. I think Cortland Sutton is a kind of a thing that the Chiefs don't have.
Yeah.
Really, I mean that's what they hope. Rashee Rice would be like a number 1 guy. So they've got some things going for them. They got some rush ends and front 7 that are really, really good. But none of these guys has done anything for this organization for sure in the postseason because they're all gone from that. And they haven't done this before. Will it be an easy thing to go to Buffalo and win your first playoff game? Won't be easy.
Let me add this too. It's a snowy Sunday at 29 with 12-mile-an-hour winds potentially.
Is that what it's supposed to be?
That's what the weather report is saying now with snow showers on Sunday. So he's going to have to be a rookie quarterback on the road.
Buffalo snow? Like real Buffalo snow? Like 60 inches of snow?
No. Okay.
Lake effect snow?
If it was real Buffalo snow, they'd play it in Detroit.
Yeah, they just move it.
The dusting of snow there in Buffalo, which is roughly 7 or 8 inches.
Yeah.
It's just it's merely a flesh wound.
We're sitting here whining about this. Buffalo's like,
right. This is a Tuesday for us. You guys, this is Snowmageddon for you guys.
Pond effect snow.
The different moves that have been made around the NFL. Doug Peterson fired in Jacksonville, 17-36 in 1-score games, 13-23 in his division, 1-11 in the first 2 weeks of the season. Oh, I'm sorry, that's Zach Taylor.
Oh.
My bad. That's Zach Taylor's numbers. Who is still the head coach in Cincinnati? Lou Anarumo.
He went to a Super Bowl.
Oh, well, and Doug Peterson, not in Jacksonville.
No.
Lou Anarumo is the sacrificial lamb for the Cincinnati Bengals, and let me tell you, thank you, Cincinnati. Thank you, Cincinnati, for firing Lou Anarumo. That's the biggest concern I've had with the Bengals wasn't Joe Burrow or Jamar Chase, and those guys are awesome. But it's always, for some reason, the Chiefs' offense looks anemic or playing in sand or just stymied to a degree when Lou Anarumo's out there coordinating against the Chiefs. And now they don't have to worry about that. That's great.
Maybe he'll pop up somewhere else.
Maybe he will. Maybe he'll pop up in Kansas City. I don't know. Who knows?
Spags gets a job?
Well, no. I mean, maybe they hire him as like a defensive quality control assistant or something like that. Just bring him on staff. You know what I mean? Just bring him on staff. Bring him on staff right now. What's the harm? What's the harm in bringing him on staff right now?
Not going to hurt anything.
You know what? Bringing him on staff and say, what do you do against us?
Is anyone else going to get fired?
It doesn't look like it.
And Sirianni loses or something, people want to fire him.
I don't think so. I mean, maybe
I
guess
a relatively
if they lose in the first round.
Group of could be 5 openings.
If Philly fans own the team, yes, but
he'd been fired 2 months ago.
I agree.
Yeah, it's just 5 openings. The Bears have been open for a while. Saints have been open for a while. Jets open for a while, and then New England opened yesterday, and today Jacksonville opened. So
we always say
only 2 of them in the last 24 hours that have been opened.
What's the worst job there, and what's the best job there?
I think Field nailed the.
I think the best job is the Patriots. I think the worst job is probably the Saints or the Jags. The Jags only because Shad Khan has already announced the new coach will report to him.
Mm-hmm.
So you've kept your GM in Trent Baalke, but you're also telling the coach you don't report to the GM, you report to the owner now.
No, that's how the Chiefs do it.
I mean. Well, it's a little bit. I would say Andy and Beach probably have some a pretty good relationship. But
that also worked in Carolina with Tepper.
Yeah,
everyone
when you've got a hands-on or too much of a hands-on
I would take the Jets job.
I wouldn't. And I'd take the Jets job only if I know for a fact that Aaron Rodgers will not be back. If I can tell whoever the GM is, maybe it's Mike Borgonzi.
To handle that right now.
Yeah, whoever the
and
GM
then call
is,
me.
I'll take the job if I get to choose my quarterback, and it's not going to be Aaron Rodgers. If we go into this draft, we go into whatever this offseason.
It's not a great year to get a quarterback either. I just don't think there's a lot out there. Maybe I'm wrong.
I'll trade my first rounder for J.J. McCarthy and take a chance there since I'm not going to be able to draft one this year.
Maybe they could get Sam Darnold back in there.
They should try Sam.
He showed some weaknesses last night that there was some of the
maybe
old
somebody
things.
can superimpose what a Jets jersey would look like on Sam Darnold.
Do you have a picture of that somewhere?
Yes. No,
I just think they're a mess, man. The Jets, and it's in New York City, and it's I start thinking more and more about the ancillary parts of the job. I know this is not what all these guys think about, but you start thinking about living there, what it costs to live there, or the spotlight, all that kind of garbage. Poof, I don't know, man.
Reporting to an 18-year-old.
Reporting to the Madden numbers, that stuff.
Yeah.
It's different. I think the Bears are super interesting. If you believe in Caleb Williams, I don't know.
I'm not
if
sure
you
that I
believe
do.
or do believe or don't believe. I don't know. You know what I mean?
I don't believe in ownership. It's like that's more concerning than Caleb Williams.
Well, people in Chicago don't believe that Ryan Poles will be able to figure out, how to,
I don't know
get
how.
out of it.
Which one of these places has that great solid ownership
I mean,
that you're looking for?
New England's
New
probably
England,
the best.
yeah.
Is that? They just messed up and
Yeah.
had
I
a
know, I
coach for
agree.
a
You're
year.
Right, yeah.
They just,
You're right. Like I think that,
But I think it's the best though. Like, which ownership is maybe the best?
Yeah.
Well, New Orleans isn't terrible,
Hey,
but
man,
also you got terrible,
I mean, they gave
salary
this guy
cap
a
issues
year. I mean, that's where you really go. They give a guy a year.
That's something, yeah. New England has tons of money and the number 4 pick in the draft. So
And a young quarterback.
and a young quarterback
okay.
who looks okay.
the worst thing Gerard Mayo had going for him was that he was Bill's hand-picked guy.
Yeah.
And the strife that happened between Bill and the ownership, I don't think anyone is surprised inside that building that it only lasted a year.
The ripple effect of Bill Belichick is still being felt a little bit, but it's about all gone.
Yeah.
It is.
These guys are gone.
Like that, I think Gerard is the last of it.
Because Mike Vrabel, isn't his guy. I mean,
No.
he was because he played for him and all that stuff. But they battled in the postseason, and
I think he handpicked Mayo so that they wouldn't pick Vrabel last year.
That's interesting. I mean, I feel like Vrabel should be the head coach in the next couple days for the Patriots.
I think that's why they fired
Makes
Mayo.
too much
They
sense.
already
Yeah,
did.
they fired Mayo yesterday.
According to Tommy Curran, and then Dan Orlovsky has said that Vrabel is spoken for. Now, they didn't say which team, but
He's got a promise ring?
No, I'm saying that.
Well, they
yeah,
also,
and
they
I think it's the Patriots.
They let him leave Cleveland earlier to get ready.
Yep.
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know.
for sure.
Have you guys seen the Ring of Honor speech he gave too in his last year in Tennessee when it's bye week?
No.
Go look that up.
Who was
Where he's-
that?
Vrabel. They put him in the Ring of Honor, and he went during his bye week, and lo and behold, Tennessee fired him after the season. He was saying in his speech that this is the gold standard of how an organization is ran, and if I want to be any place, it's here. And he was saying this as the coach of the Titans.
Interesting. Yeah. There's only one GM job opening, and that's the Jets. Mike Borgonzi.
Then you have to answer to an 18-year-old.
That's right.
I don't know,
That's
dude.
right. Mike Borgonzi has been requested, or the Jets have requested from the Chiefs an interview with Mike Borgonzi, and they've requested from the Chiefs an interview with Matt Nagy for their head coaching position. I joked with Field Yates, Todd, and we'll get to learn funniest best. I joked with Field Yates. I said, I don't know, maybe the Jets are looking back, or people are looking back and going, you know what, this Bears organization is pretty bad. And Nagy took Trubisky to the playoffs twice with the Bears.
He did.
Maybe we misjudged this whole thing. Maybe he is a good coach. Who knows?
It's
man.
it's interesting. I mean, listen, I like Mike and I like Matt, and I wish them to get whatever job they want to get.
I just don't.
I would avoid the Jets.
Yeah, if Mike Borgonzi, I think, could get the Jets job, but I think he could also get a GM job that may open next year. I mean, who knows? What jobs might be open.
I keep saying this all the time. Things are. I don't know what it's all like to work at Arrowhead and all this stuff. It seems like it's pretty good. They win a lot. They have parades. They get rings. They do all this stuff. Don't run away from happiness.
Yeah.
To try to find, because we see sometimes you went away, and it's not as good.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, a couple years later, you're saying you're going to be out and you want to get traded, even though you got a big bag of money in Miami. I don't know.
I mean,
these things happen.
Indianapolis might be open. I mean, they may go Chris Ballard next year. I'm talking about because they've already said that Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen are returning. The Giants, depending on what they do at quarterback. I mean, you've got the John Mara came out and said, "My patience is gone." So there has to be clear improvement next year for Dable and showing to return.
Well, there's
as
enough.
the
Anyone
Giants.
have
They
more
get to come back.
patience?
Yeah, you
Yes.
get to come back again. That's some patience.
Yes, my patience is gone.
No
so
one
it
has
better
more
be-
restraint than John Mara.
I know. So the Giants may be open as a GM job opening. The Colts may be open as a GM job opening. I may wait and take my chances as still being an assistant GM for the Kansas City Chiefs and this dynasty that I may have a pretty good opportunity next year as well.
Man.
We'll take a timeout. We'll come back and we'll get to learn funniest best on the other side of the break. More Zone next. All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you. Todd Lebo hanging out with us until 2 o'clock. Dylan Michaels. We got Learn Funniest Best here. Go around the room. Things we learned from the weekend.
I'm the sports director at KSHP 41. Is that what I am today?
That's exactly right. Yes, Todd Lebo is playing the role of Mick, and an empty chair is playing the role of Sterling. So both of you are killing it.
Actually works out perfect.
You guys are killing it, this role you're playing right now. 913-912-4810. Let's get into Learn Funniest Best. Go around the room. What we learned from the weekend, funniest from the weekend, and best from the weekend. What I learned this weekend, watching some of the coverage with the local news and what was going on out at KCI, and they were doing a story on how they keep the runways clean and clear with the ice coming in and the snow. And I learned that two of their bigger truck snow plow types, but they're sort of bigger than that. They're like the massive ones. They have two of them, and they're named Betty Whiteout and the Big Leplowski.
Leplowski.
I thought that was pretty awesome. So you know,
the
have a little fun.
Ties the airport together.
Exactly, the whole that plow ties the whole airport together, the whole runway together. Yeah, so the Big Leplowski and Betty Whiteout are the names.
If they're doing that work.
You know what? Absolutely, have some fun with it. You're going to be out there, and they have certainly been working around the clock the last couple of days. Todd, what'd you learn?
I learned. I think I already knew this, but I really learned it. That the top of the SEC in basketball is pretty salty.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Pretty salty. Alabama. Auburn, Tennessee, all had home games against good teams, right? A couple of them were ranked. I mean, Missouri's not ranked, but Missouri's right on the edge of being ranked. No contest in any of those games. And even Florida, who was kind of a little bit of a paper tiger, going to Kentucky, only 6-point game, but they got beat too. SEC basketball, the top is really, really good. I don't know if they're going to go send 3 teams the Elite 8 or something like that, but there's some really athletic, good stuff at the very top of the SEC.
It's going to be interesting. I do wonder if there's a team in the middle of the SEC that may have made the tournament in a different conference because of like how like you're going to have to like 8 and I don't think 8 and 10 is going to get you to the tournament. Like if Mizzou goes 8 and 10 in SEC play, I think it might get them close to the bubble, depending on who. Depending on who the 8 wins are. Yeah, because the 10 losses probably isn't going to be a terrible loss mixed in there. But probably need 9 and 9, something like that, to get in the tournament. But it's not going to be easy along the way for them to do that. They got LSU this weekend. LSU's not ranked. You know, they're 6-point favorites according to Ken Palm. Not this weekend, tomorrow, I should say. They've got LSU, but yeah, the top is pretty salty. And
they were all at home this week.
Somehow Mizzou covered that spread. They were at, 17.5, and that thing was like 28 or 29 at one point.
Come back and cover it, baby.
They ended up losing by like 16 and covered them. Like, I'm glad I did not play that line because college basketball is crazy to me. Dylan, what'd you learn this weekend?
So I learned that Dax Shepard and Kristen Bell are just like us. They posted a video, Kristen Bell did, of Dax Shepard watching the Lions game during the Golden Globes on his phone. So they are just like us, and if you are listening to this station, you're probably doing the same thing, watching the Lions and Vikings over the Golden Globes.
I was watching it on my phone while the family was watching like America's Funniest Home Videos, and I'm watching the Lions and Vikings game on my phone.
I was out shoveling.
Oh, yes, there you go. It's out shoveling. Oh, yeah. Nikki Glaser, by the way, killed it. She was
I heard
awesome.
It was good, but it wasn't. She's better when she's like can work a little more blue. Network TV.
Yeah,
but I heard it was good.
She had some good roasts.
Nobody's as good as Ricky Gervais at that.
Oh yeah, because they ain't gonna invite him back.
Ricky ain't coming back
because of that. All right, to the funniest we go. Todd, we start with you. Funniest from the weekend.
But we've been running down the Jets here. Very funny before the game when they had the Jets big banner thing that they took out on the field and was upside down. And Mike Sando, who's one of Petro's guests, tweeted at the account that said that only Jimmy Hoffa could read it. So, great one for Mike Sando.
Oh, Mike Sando, brilliant, dude.
Very good. But, yeah, the Jets logo upside down on the deal. That is peak Jets right
Shout
there.
out to Mike Sando with that line. Only Jimmy Hoffa could read that. That's brilliant. Yeah, that is peak Jets, coming out with the banner that is upside down.
Was an 18-year-old in charge of that? I don't know.
Probably, yes. Dylan, what was the funniest for you from the weekend?
So it just happened. So it happened over the weekend because Tyreek Hill is very unhappy with his time in Miami right now with the Dolphins. But it just happened where he changed his profile picture to an edit of his face over Antonio Brown's running off the Jets field when Antonio Brown abruptly retired from football during a game. I thought that was pretty funny that Tyreek Hill is
oh my God, yeah,
stoking the fire and changing his profile picture to his face on AB's leaving the football field.
I see it now. Yes.
Where did that happen? Right there where that Jets sign was upside down. Oh, yeah. Same place, right? It was a Jets game. Oh, gosh. What a wild thing that was.
Yeah.
I completely forgot it happened, but I can't believe I did.
Yes.
Antonio Brown went out with a flourish, didn't he?
He really did. I mean, he tried to get back a couple times, but tough to overcome that. But Tyreek, the door is now open for him. He is opening up the door and wanting out of Miami. The funniest for me, so this is from NFL Films, and this was the NFC Championship game of the 1969 season before the Vikings and Chiefs ended up playing in the Super Bowl.
Okay.
This was the Vikings game. And
who are they playing? Cowboys, Packers, someone like that? I don't know.
Who were they? Dylan, who were they playing in?
I think
in 60 and 9 of our Lord.
60?
No, 69.
69?
Yes.
I think Cowboys would be right. That'd be your best bet.
Pretty much it's who was always there,
That's
right?
who was always there.
I'm going to look it up.
Might have an outside shot.
Could have been the Colts back then, too. That could have been the NFC.
They played
the
Cleveland Browns.
Oh, Cleveland.
They won 27-7.
Cleveland almost made a Super Bowl.
Pre-merger, that's why.
Yeah, they won 27-7 against the Cleveland Browns. So the NFL Films of this game, I didn't know this story. But after we find out about the story, it makes this sound even crazier. So this is about 30 seconds, and it's an intro to the Vikings and Cleveland Browns NFC Championship game from NFL Films.
Minnesota in December is a winter wonderland, although a bit on the chilly side. There are many quaint winter carnival pastimes. But some things can get out of hand. More than 40,000 watched in disbelief as a hot air balloon carried an 11-year-old boy over the light towers and eventually dumped him in the icy Minnesota River. It was a tough act to follow.
What on earth?
I looked up this story. So he really was dumped into the river with slush and ice, and he had to be rescued. It was supposed to be a hot air balloon, would go straight up and then straight down as part of a halftime show. His mom was in the balloon. It couldn't go up. There was too much weight. So she put her 11-year-old son in the balloon. It goes up. The rope snaps because it goes up with too much force. And it just floats. Barely goes by the lights. Okay, so it hits the lights. He's dead. Barely goes by the lights. As he's then going 3 miles in this hot air balloon with an 11-year-old. No way to do it. No steering. No way to let it out because it was like a prop. It was going to go up and then back down. It finally lowers into the river, and he's got to go roughly, they said he swam roughly 30 yards in his clothes in slush and ice in the river, and then was rescued and then driven back to the stadium to then go to the Vikings locker room to then be taken care of by the trainers there to put in dry clothes, and eventually getting hold of his parents who were tracking the balloon that ended up lifting back up from the wind and landing another 5 miles into a field, which is where everybody else went. They all went to this. He had already gotten out. There was a photographer that was there. And it was like they did a story on this guy like 10 years ago, and he was talking about, he's like, I was 11. I didn't know enough to be scared. It was like, I'm up in this balloon. He's like, and then I landed in the river and, swam out and like.
Hey, Mike's got this.
Can you play that sound one more time? Because now think of this kid dodges the lights, which would have killed him. If the river had been flowing with the ice instead of being still because of the ice and the slush, he's washed away. Yeah. So how they end this particular sound in leading into the Vikings and Browns game.
Minnesota in December is a winter wonderland, although a bit on the chilly side. There are many quaint winter carnival pastimes. But some things can get out of hand. More than 40,000 watched in disbelief as a hot air balloon carried an 11-year-old boy over the light towers and eventually dumped him in the icy Minnesota River. It was a tough act to follow.
It was a tough act to follow. Just so cavalier. It's a tough act to follow. But the Vikings did, and they took care of business and beat the Cleveland Browns.
We were tougher people back then.
Yes, man. She got out and put her 11-year-old son that was going to go up in this hot air balloon.
He'll be fine.
He'll be fine.
Any waivers signed? Anything?
It's all good.
So Chiefs fans may remember, this is going to be hard to remember, but I do because I see it all the time. In the Super Bowl, there was a pregame show with a Viking, and they put him in a hot air balloon, and the Viking was too heavy for the hot air balloon, and it drug it across the stands.
Oh, my gosh.
And they're interviewing the Chiefs players, and they're saying, kind of symbolized what was going to happen for the rest of that game. It almost set a precedent of what was about to happen.
Maybe no more hot air balloons in Vikings.
No, yeah, that's what
they didn't come over here on hot air balloons.
Learn.
Okay, that's not how the Vikings got here.
They came over go through icy flows of river like this kid.
But they were in a boat, not in a little bucket. So that was my funniest from the weekend.
Oh my God.
Best from the weekend, Dylan. We'll start with you. What was your best?
Best was Mike Evans getting to tie Jerry Rice for the consecutive 1,000-yard seasons and getting $3 million on the almost last play of the game for the Buccaneers, and they made the playoffs. So pretty good day for Mike Evans. I'm a big Mike Evans fan. So
yeah, that was pretty cool. Loved seeing that. My best from the weekend was, I had that one as my best from the weekend. There were a lot of guys that were getting money. Von Miller got a sack early in the game and then taken out of the game. He got his bonus. Cortland Sutton got his incentive. There was a lot of guys out there that were getting their incentives.
Did Gino get all of his? Or he get some, didn't he?
Gino got his $3 million worth, or was it $6 million?
It's a bunch.
It was a bunch. I think it might have been six. Mike Evans got $3 million.
Yeah.
I think Gino might have gotten $6 million in incentives. Not really best worthy, but thought this was really interesting. Marvin Harrison Sr., rookie year, 64 catches, 836 yards, and 8 touchdowns. Marvin Harrison Jr., rookie year, 63 catches, 885 yards, and 8 touchdowns. But that was pretty random and odd that the Marvin Harrisons have roughly the exact same statistics. Thought that was an interesting stat. Best for you, Todd.
Well, I had Mike Evans written down. I liked his line afterwards. He said, "What are you going to do?" He says, "Going to a casino." And he said, "You afraid fans are going to follow?" He goes, "Not where I'm going." He must be going high limit. But the best thing happened to me this weekend was I went over to Costco at about noon today. 14 people in there.
How about that?
It's unbelievable. And I tried to go there on Friday because I just needed one thing, and I wanted this popcorn. And I just got over there. I got my gas,
and I went like the mixed popcorn.
I went out. No, just lesser evil.
Okay.
Himalayan pink salt.
Okay.
But I got gas over there, and I looked at the parking lot. I said, I'm out. So then I ddidn't even know they were like really open. I just went over there. There's 14 people in there.
Dude,
now there was no food out or anything.
I drove by.
It was so good.
I drove by Friday. And the entire parking lot was filled.
Yeah, there's nowhere to go.
There wasn't a spot. There was cars driving up and down lanes. I'm like,
I
that seems like a
and
disaster.
I was like, I'm out of here because then I had to go to Chiefs and all that stuff, and I didn't want to be late.
I can't imagine how long the lines were actually
inside
to then check out.
Hey, wasn't anybody in there at noon today. This is beautiful.
See, wait till the storm happens,
it's
then
over.
Go shopping.
Yes,
that's smart.
Make it through the week. I didn't have my popcorn. It's okay.
That's just smart. There you go. I guess my best would have been, continuing to win at Yahtzee in the family. Wife swears
dominating.
Wife swears one day she's going to beat me at Yahtzee. Sure.
You're playing real Yahtzee with real dice.
Real Yahtzee.
Okay.
Real dice.
No computer Yahtzee.
Oh no. Real dice.
Don't trust that.
Real Yahtzee. Real strategy. Okay.
That's right.
We'll take a timeout. Wrap up the show next. 6 o'clock. Typically, we were going to have that at 6 o'clock, but they stayed in Florida, right?
Yeah, I assume they're getting back here fine, but I think it was probably going to be too tight, so they went ahead and canceled Hawk Talk. So
yeah. UCF didn't even show up to that game. That was odd. That was a nice little scrimmage for KU.
It was like the Chiefs game. It was like that.
It was like that's
someone
exactly
was
right.
trying and someone wasn't.
Yeah, UCF was like, no, we're resting our starters for the next game we're playing.
I don't think the line was 45 or whatever.
No, it wasn't.
Won by,
I had UCF minus or KU minus 47.5.
Didn't get it. So close.
Just missed it.
So no Hawk Talk.
Yes. So I don't know. Maybe don't host a New Year's celebration there in the arena right before KU gets there. Do you see the Hunter Dickinson? Said they found confetti that was falling from the, and they were like, oh, so they're getting ready to storm the court on us. Okay, like they did last year. Okay, so they're getting ready for a party here.
Find whatever works, right?
Exactly. I think they were going to dominate UCF
and
anyway.
That's when it got personal.
And I took that personally. They were going to dominate it after what happened to West Virginia there at Allen Fieldhouse.
And what happened down there last year.
And what happened last year, but whatever adds the motivation, if that's what it is.
Works.
But UCF said, no, we had a celebration on New Year's Eve. That was just left over.
Sorry.
Too bad. Program coming up next.